Everyone, welcome to the May 2018 Village of Buchanan Board meeting. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, and if we could have Kieran Outhouse lead us today in the pledge.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And next is a presentation, a certificate of appreciation for Michelle O'Neill. And Michelle, if you could stand up by the podium. Whoop, let me put my glasses on.
Michelle's the one standing by the podium.
Good, good. I'm not that bad.
Who are you?
Okay.
Put your glasses on. Put your glasses.
So, and that's Michelle here. So, we have tonight a certificate of appreciation, and it's presented to Michelle O'Neill, Planning Board Chairman, and she has finished her tenure. And so in grateful recognition of services rendered to the Village of Buchanan, State of New York, the Village would like to thank you for your 5 years of service to the Planning Board, including 2 years as Planning Board Chairman. Thank you very much.
I would like to thank the board and the mayor for appointing me as chairman. I'm truly honored. I'd like to thank the planning board members, Sean, Tracy, Mike, and Mike. I'd like to thank the professional staff, the building engineer, planner, our building inspector, our attorney, Stephanie Porteous, for all their insight and expertise in guiding us in all our decisions. I'd like to thank the staff at Village Hall, Cindy and Sharon, Kevin Hay for keeping us on track and giving us escrow information and all that. And I would also like to thank Rosemary Martin, the secretary to the planning board, indispensable. She took control and made everything run smoothly. And I'd also like to thank my family, my husband, my son, and my daughter who's here. Thank you again.
All right, no, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. It's important. We have residents come and represent the village and, you know, help us with our planning boards and zoning boards. So thank you for your service. Okay, we're going to do approval of minutes, March 6, 2018. Any additions?
I have one correction. Page 2 on the top paragraph, he presented Officer Buddy instead of Officer Tubbs. March 6th, on the second page. The first paragraph, the last sentence.
On the last.
Yeah. It was Officer Buddy who got the presentation.
Okay.
That's all I have.
Okay.
Nothing for me.
Nothing here?
Nothing.
On a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
And I will abstain. I was not present at that meeting. I was homesick with the flu and did not want to share it with everyone. Now we move on to April 3rd, 2018, organizational meeting.
I have nothing.
Nothing here?
Nothing.
Okay.
Nothing for me.
On a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, normally, comments from the floor are on agenda items only, but I know a lot of people are here this evening that would like to make comments, so I'm not going to torture you and make you wait through this whole meeting as we do the village business. I do have a statement I'd like to read, and one of the things, as people come up, I would also like to ask that you limit your comments to 3 minutes, and also let's, as always, remain civil to one another. We might disagree on different things, but we're still all Buchanan residents and we all have to live here. So first of all, I am very happy to see so many residents here. I have not seen this many residents when we have our Buchanan 2021 meetings. We're discussing a lot of things, And everyone knows that changes are coming, and it's important that everybody's aware of what's going on. So today is your opportunity to address the board on rumors and allegations recently made. But first, I'm going to read a statement so that I can cover all the points. This is our first televised meeting since the announcement of a police officer retiring. The first time we got information was on April 4th. And the rumor that's been going around is that the village board is trying to get rid of the police department through attrition. And also, there's potentially another officer leaving. We're not mentioning any names, who these officers are, but I'm sure everyone knows. And we're just not sure how this information is circulating. Since the village, it's a personnel issue, and there has been no official notification of the second officer leaving. Only one officer is leaving due to retirement. So we wish that officer well, and we thank him for his service. And let me clarify this point. The board cannot get rid of a police department because they decide to. If and when it is done, it's done by a referendum. On an email dated, I have Chief Tubbs' email here. Sorry, I did have it here.
Previous one?
No, the first. So, on April 9th, we received an email from Chief Tubbs. And he says, I believe it will be difficult to find a qualified officer willing to transfer to the Village of Buchanan with all that will be going on in the next few years. Therefore, if the village board wishes to maintain a police department, and we do, I suggest that the job opening be posted immediately. We have contacted the chief, and we have told him to go forward with the hiring process. But do remember that because of the changes, and the chief feels the same way. Is that correct, Chief? Are you still in that opinion that it might be difficult to find a replacement?
Some things came to light today that might make it a little bit easier. That,
Okay,
we'll
good.
have to discuss later on, but
Perfect. I'm glad to hear that. So with this information that has been obtained within the last few weeks about potential changes within the department, we started discussing a contingency plan if we were unable to replace officers. So we had a discussion, and Trustee Funchin and Pasquale spoke to the police officers to hear their concerns. For those who have not followed what is going on, Indian Point 1 will close in April 2020, 2 years from now. As a matter of fact, 2 years from yesterday. IP3 in 2021, 3 years from now. The taxes supply 50% of our budget. We'll be losing $3 million, half of our budget. There will be tough decisions that will have to be made for the village to remain viable and not become a ghost town with abandoned houses, such as happened in other communities that face a loss of a large taxpayer. We are working on ways to mitigate the loss, and I'm just going to take a few minutes to review some things that are being worked on. And if anyone would like to meet with me, I've held several meetings here at the Village Hall to discuss what this closure means to us and the ways that are being mitigated, but I only get a handful full of people that show up. So I wish I would have this many people when we're discussing the future of the village. So one of the things is the cessation fund set up by the state and funded in this year's New York budget, the Stranded Act proposed under federal legislation. Sandy Galiff has introduced legislation for the spent fuel costs to tax them. And we continue to look for economic development. And as of yesterday, we had somebody from the federal government, the Economic Development Association, that met with us here at Village Hall. And we continue to see if we can get funds from them. And of course, how we can provide services more efficiently. And other things that I'm working on, I can't discuss yet, but there are other things that we're doing. And the Buchanan 2021 Committee, it's an advisory committee consisting of residents, was formed. So we want the feedback from the residents. And we also have the potential of renegotiating the pilot with Entergy. So to say we are willing to let things just happen is absolutely untrue. If all the things being worked on come to fruition, all these conversations will be a moot point. If the residents tell us they want to remain the same, continue all their services, and it's okay to double the taxes, then that's what we will do. The police chief has been told to start looking for candidates, so we will be hiring when a qualified candidate is found. So we are not dismantling through attrition. Residents are not being left in the dark in this process or change. This board has always been transparent. We are all aware of the benefits of having a police department. I'm just very disappointed in what has gone on here with the lies and accusations. I had asked everyone to remain calm when we had the first meeting after the announcement. If we feed into lies and hysteria, this village will not be able to move forward and survive the challenge. We all need to work together. Thank you. Okay, I am understanding Ms. Barbara LaFemina would be like the first to speak. So Barbara, you're number one.
Hi. I am Barbara LaFemina, a longtime resident on 4th Street. I also work at Buchanan Verplank Elementary School. The Buchanan Police Department is vital to our community, and I want to give some examples. The Buchanan Police Department comes to our school every day and enters our building, and they walk around the grounds of our school. They minimize any fear with regards to safety issues and develop good relationships between our students and our police. Rob Buddy saved an infant's life. Thank God he was there in seconds. There was an unknown male walking his dogs on the school playground when our kids were outside for recess, and Shane was there in seconds. Last week, we heard explosions outside while the kids were at recess, and we brought all the kids in, and Shane was there in seconds, and he investigated and found out it was fireworks, and our school resumed normal activities. Our school had a fire in our classroom from a radiator, and Courtney was there in seconds. There was an emotional disturbed male that was hanging out in front of my house, and I contacted the police, and Guida, Shane, and Buddy immediately took care of it. In the middle of the night, my house alarm went off to the police, and 1 second later, I see Anthony running to my front door. A raccoon was on my front step, and they took care of that too. And when we go away, they take care of our houses, and when my dog runs away, they help me find him. I just hope that moving forward, you will take into consideration the ongoing need of our Buchanan Police Department to continue in our community. We can thank our wonderful police department. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Barbara. Okay, who would like to speak next? Anyone?
What about me?
I guess you're able to speak next.
Nobody
I was
got
just
up.
hoping somebody in the audience would
Yeah, well,
like to.
they can get up. I'll just, while there's a gap and somebody's thinking if they want to get up, I want to say a couple of things. I want to say, first of all, everybody that is on this board has to live in the village. We all live in the village. Everybody that's on this board would like to have the police stay the way it is. Everybody on this board also has to take into account what that will cost. A lot of people are like, fine, double my taxes. A lot of other people are like, I don't want any increase, okay? We sent out a survey, which admittedly was not well written. There was, it was not written by a professional survey person. We kind of wanted to get some public sentiment, and we did rush it out. And if you followed our meetings, came to the meetings, or watched them online, you would have seen me go through the survey and explain what I thought was not valid in the results and what I thought did give us something that we could, that we could look at and use in our actions. But it was a flawed survey. But one basic thing I want to point out about that survey: a majority of people, 62% said they would like to see the tax increase kept between 0 and 25%. But a large number of people also said, no matter what the tax increase, we want to keep our police. So that's kind of like saying, climb up the tree but stay on the ground. If you look at the contradiction there, that's what we're faced with. And we have to take into account the people that can afford a doubling of their village taxes, as well as the people who are on fixed income. So, we're taking our time and doing our homework and doing doing our research. We've discussed a lot of different things. We want to be forthright with the public. If you came to meetings or watch them on TV, you do get a lot of the information. Certain things, I'm going to tell you, we have to hold back. Because if you say, let's just look at option A, B, and C, all of a sudden, everyone's going to be running around and say, oh my God, they're considering option C. We're looking at everything, comparing costs, breaking it down, and doing our best to come up with what is best for everybody. So I'm sorry if some people feel they're only getting information through rumors, but ultimately, nothing will be done, as the mayor said, without coming to you. So I'm kind of glad to see you paying attention, but also, come to the meetings and ask the questions as they come up so that we can explain if your information is complete or if it's missing something. You're welcome to come to any meeting. But, it's a work in progress. And, thank you all for expressing the interest, but please don't panic. I probably have more to say, but I'm going to pause and let somebody else speak.
Yes. Yes, when you come up, just give your name and I guess, where you live, right, Sue? You need both information.
Jeffrey
Thank you.
Fiala. I live at 212 Craft Lane. We moved here from Ossining. The reason we moved here to this quaint little village is because, one, you have a police department, you have a volunteer fire department, and you also have a village workers that assist in the department. But I want to bring to your attention, I came here as a fact-finding mission, and I'm glad that you brought to our attention that a referendum would have to be passed by the village residents to do anything. But in the town of Ossining, they went through the same issue. They could either go to the county police or the village of Ossining police. They chose to go to the Westchester County Police, and it turned out it cost them more. Mm-hmm. And then also, when there was an emergency, the police officers that were supposed to be patrolling the town of Ossining was not here. If the people of crime know that someone else is not going to be patrolling the village of Buchanan, you're going to have problems. So I hope everyone in the village keeps an eye out, looking to protect Buchanan.
Absolutely. Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you.
I saw another hand. Okay.
Somebody put up a hand.
Yeah. Joe, you might want to go out the door and come up. Can you? Oh, okay. All right. Thank you.
Pretty nimble. Hello, everybody.
Hello. Good evening.
Joe Karras, 222 Ketchum Avenue. My wife Kathy's here. A lot of my neighbors as well. I realize you guys have a hard job, and I guess a lot of people are here because we do value our police department. We feel safe, we feel secure, and it insulates us from the areas around us, like Peekskill, which not the greatest areas in some respects. I know my family's safe. When I'm out to work, I know the police department's doing their job in the neighborhood. I don't have to worry. With drug opioid prices at hand, crime on the rise, I think having a police department will help not only protect us, but keep our home values up. So it's a slippery slope. If we go down that slope, we're not going to get back up. Mm-hmm. So I know you have a hard decision to make, and I'm glad it goes to referendum. The village will be able to speak their mind. But we got a lot of tough choices, but this is one I don't think we want to do. We've seen it happen in other communities, and the response times, the coverage, we're not going to get it anymore. It'll be gone for good, and so will this unique village that we have. Mm-hmm. We've been here over 25 years, and I wouldn't give it away for the world, but I hate to see that change. I realize things are going to change. I know we have to deal with change. Something we have to deal with, but there's got to be some other ways, And Teresa, if you need me to get involved, you've got my number. Give me a call.
Definitely. I'd appreciate that. The more input we have from the public, especially on our Buchanan 2021 committee, that's our advisory board from the residents. So that's a...
I've got a great relationship with Terrence Murphy.
Terrence is a good guy. He's really helped us out. He really has.
Yep. So whatever else we can do, okay?
All right, perfect, thank you. All right. I think I saw another hand, yes. Yep, there he is. There's room up in the front row, if you guys,
Good evening.
Good evening.
First of all, Madam Mayor, I'd like to thank you for squashing some of the rumors.
Can you give your name, please?
Todd Horgan, 105 Burke Court. Originally from 113 Bannon Avenue since 1983.
Can't hear you back here.
yeah, just,
How
yeah.
about now?
Oh, maybe when somebody, okay, that's on, you're good.
All right.
Okay.
So it seems like your response at the beginning of the meeting had a little bit of a directness towards me, just because a lot of the things you spoke to.
Well, you're the only one that wrote a letter that I
Right.
saw,
And
so
I appreciate
I was addressing you,
And I
yes.
appreciate
Sure.
your response. I did get an email response back from you. What I'm going to do, and with your permission, is I know you squashed some of the rumors, but I'd like to read that email just for the record and so that everybody here
Absolutely.
can hear my
That's fine.
concerns. So I started off, I'm writing this as a concerned resident of the village of Buchanan. I've lived in the village my entire life, married a lifelong village resident, and made a choice to expand my house and raise my children in the village. There are many reasons I chose Buchanan: the small town feel, the camaraderie of its residents, the quiet streets, and the feeling of being safe. A staple of the village has always been the police department. From the days when Officer Tubbs, now Chief, would check on my parents' house on Bannon Avenue when we went on vacation, to when Officer Farrell, riding down Burke Court, waving to my kids, we have always felt a sense of community that not many small towns still hold. Some of you sit here today having raised your children in the village and having given your children the opportunity of having this small town feel with the local police department. Now that your children are grown up, you may no longer be concerned with the importance of that small town feel. Just like those who vote down the school budget every year because you don't have school-aged children anymore, these people should not be running the village of Buchanan. It should be the future of the village. Hearing that we may be losing the peace of mind that brings great concern to many residents. What is more concerning is that we have to hear these rumors from our own sources rather than the powers that be, you the elected officials. Let's start off with one simple question, and we've already addressed this a little bit, but whose answer is just as simple and does not warrant any debate. What were the results of the all too suggestive survey sent to village residents a few months ago? Remember the one that asked us to rank the village services in order of importance? The one where they asked a very pointed question, I believe it's saved to the end, that if we were to get rid of the police department, what we would like to see happen. You seem to have already anticipated the results by asking such a direct question. Why not ask, what if the highway department was dismantled? Or was it because you already had your minds made up? You asked for the input of the community, but have failed us by not sharing the results. What is there to hide? Why are village residents not aware of a police sergeant's retirement and lack of communication with the community regarding his replacement? If you dismantle the police department, which has been a staple in this community for its entire existence, what is your plan to keep our residents safe? Residents have a right to be involved in this process, and again, we've already addressed this with the referendum. What will happen to men and women of the police department, some of whom were village residents themselves? You'll not only lose them as guardians of the community, but you will most likely lose them as community members altogether. And just going back to what the gentleman said before about Ossining, if you think that surrounding agencies will fill the void left by departing officers, you're in for a surprise. Currently, 911 calls for service are routed to Peekskill PD through landlines, and the New York State Police in Hawthorne from cell phones. However, residents of Buchanan know that they can always call a local number and get an officer on the line 24/7, 365. Officers who know your name, and more importantly, know where you live and how to get there. After hours, the call goes to the cell phone in the officer's pocket, making late night response times in the village among the fastest in the country. Yes, State Police Troop K, Cortland, is less than 3 miles away, but their area of responsibility encompasses nearly 100 square miles. Highways, large municipalities, malls, and large shopping centers are among their many areas of coverage. Putt Valley to Phillips Sound, Cortland Manor to Mohegan Lake. State police, however, like many local police agencies, are spread thin. Larger call volumes, less police to respond. Oftentimes their calls require large responses, taking multiple units out of service, requiring them to hold calls until someone is free. Response times would go from seconds to 20 minutes or longer. When seconds count, minutes are just too long. Just ask the parents of the 8-month-old that was recently revived by one of Buchanan's finest. PD is often on scene before CVAC, and before CVAC can establish a full crew 9 times out of 10. The average burglary lasts less than 3 minutes from the time the alarm sounds to the time the intruder is gone. We would be lucky if state police received the call in that time frame, let alone send a unit. State police don't patrol. That's not their responsibility. They'll drive down Tate Avenue on their way out to Route 9 to the Taconic just to check the box. Residents of Burke Court, Seward Street, Donahue Court wouldn't see a police officer the entire day. The idea of community policing would retire with Sergeant Guida. Westchester County Police have one designated car to cover the entire town of Cortland, which includes Route 6, the shopping district, Route 9, and the Bear Mountain Parkway. How often do you think they'd be on 4th Street? During shift changes, local roads would go unpatrolled for approximately 1 hour. The officer going off duty has to drive to Hawthorne to turn his equipment and his vehicle in, and the officer coming on duty has to drive back up. Oftentimes, these happen during the busiest times of day: school dismissals, bus drop-offs, and the morning commute. Buchanan Verplanck Elementary School hosts children in a local school setting within the village. Police presence in the area gives parents the peace of mind that someone is protecting their children from the outside. An officer walks the halls daily, a sheepdog of sorts, watching over his flock, protecting them from the wolves. Routine patrols of the school not only show teachers and students that they are cared for, but also deter any potential threats to our children. Are you ready to answer to a parent and explain why there are no police available to help their child in time? Knowing that there is a police officer on the road less than a mile away at all times puts parents at ease, not just at BV, but at Frank G. in the high school. Because God forbid there is a major incident at either one of those schools, you can bet Buchanan PD would be the first officers to arrive.
Absolutely.
Have you planned to make cuts elsewhere? Would residents be willing to keep the police to cut to possibly once weekly garbage pickup? Have you asked? What about snow plowing in the highway department, which I believe is the highest paid department in the county? The town of Cortland Highway Department is right down on Westchester Avenue. As residents of the town, we already pay town taxes. Would it be more cost effective to dismantle our highway department, have the town absorb our employees, and they would swing through the village roads on their way out to the main roads? What about the fire department, who I have the utmost respect for? What is their call volume and the cost benefit? An all-volunteer agency that answers 100 calls for service a year. Peekskill has already decided to consolidate their 6 fire stations, and they respond to nearly 4,500 calls a year. They would have one central location. Why can't we consolidate with Montrose and Verplanck? I'm not unaware of the monetary implications to the village due to the upcoming closure of Indian Point. Unfortunately, it seems that the village has taken a step back and a backseat approach and is willing to just let things happen, as you quoted me earlier. By not hiring to fill a current vacancy, you're sending a message to the current policemen and women that you do not support them, and that is why additional officers are out looking for other jobs. As mentioned, I've been a lifelong resident in the village. I have a family that lives in the village. I'm a father of 2, an active member of the Cortland Community Volunteer Ambulance Corps, and just so you know, an active member of the law enforcement community. I know the importance of community policing and response times. I'm not willing to sit back and watch our police department be treated with such disrespect, and better yet, I'm not willing to sit back as you put my children and the residents of this village at risk, allowing this to happen under your watch. Are you ready to go down in history as the village, as the ones who shut down the police department and put the lives of your residents in jeopardy? I ask you reconsider. I will be happy to join you in this fight. You say you fully support the police department. I'd like to see it. Thank you.
Thank you, Todd. Thank you for, and you know what, Todd, thank you for taking the time to write that letter. But there's been no decisions made yet on anything. There's going to be tough conversations that are going to be had. We need the feedback from the residents. I've lived here all my life, too, and I don't want to say how many years. But, you know, I have a lot of roots in this community. My grandparents lived here. My aunts and uncles were born across the street from the house my parents built in the 60s, and my great-grandparents lived across the street. So my roots run very deep. I've lived here all my life with phenomenal services. And you know what? When you talk to other communities, they don't have what we had. We have been very blessed here. We need to try to keep these services. And what I will say to you, if everything that we're working on, this might be a whole moot discussion in the end. So I like my services. I'm spoiled. I'll be the first to tell you.
But I don't
So,
think it's feasible that we need to hold on to Ulster County property taxes in Westchester.
well, you know what, there are changes
I'm willing
coming,
to step
you
up.
know.
I think a lot of the residents in the village are as well.
Yeah, and we're looking at worst case scenario now without the other options coming into play. There were a few things, you know what, I'd love to know where these rumors are coming from, but nobody's going to come forward and tell us. So, but we have a lot of issues we have to work through, and I think people realize that the taxes are going to change a little, but we're trying to be fair to everyone, because some people, you could triple their taxes, no big deal. You know, what we're kind of worried about are the people on fixed income. So we're looking for more money. We're looking for these other options. So all this other stuff, it doesn't matter. Would I like to keep all the services? Yeah. I've lived here all my life. I can't imagine different things. But what I'd like to also talk to you about is, remember one thing. You know, you're talking about the town of Cortland. You're talking about their services. We don't get charged for a highway department right now. Yes, we pay taxes to them, but we only pay for, we really don't have services from the town. So, so if we start adding on, just know your taxes will go up. And when I go and talk to the Buchanan 2021 committee, I want to show them I own a piece of property in Verplank, and I want to show them what those taxes look like. So we're trying to work through things, and you know, we're doing the best we can, and we're not sitting here with our teeth in our mouth waiting for 2020 to come along, you know. So it's a challenging time, and I'm just, you know, I want to hear from people. I want to hear their thoughts. We've been a very transparent board, and that's going to continue. And the only other thing I want to address with you, we had a board meeting on April 3rd, and we got the notification from the officer that he had an intent of retiring, and that was in June. He has now changed that time, and he's leaving in May. So that kind of, you know, we're in crunch time now, but the chief has said that he has new information today that, you know, we want to hire a qualified officer, so now that's something he'll be looking at. So we're not hiding anything. It's just we had the meeting April 3rd. We don't meet every week. The next meeting was a workshop. So we can't meet unless it's an emergency situation other than a meeting, an advertised meeting or an emergency meeting. So we've had some discussions, and we did talk about it at the workshop last Tuesday, I think it was. Yes. So here we are working on this. Okay, thank you. But thank you. You took a lot of time to do that. I appreciate that.
So I'm just going to...
Can I say something? Sure. Okay. I moved up here in 1995. I like the small town feel of Buchanan. One of the things that happened when we were down one officer a year ago was that those remaining officers worked overtime and didn't miss a beat with the coverage in this village. And I applaud them for those incidents and what they continue to do. So, you know, let me put it this way, my basic feeling is that there's nothing like having your own. Nothing like having your own. And as long as I'm on this board, that's where the direction will be. But again, I appreciate your comments. I appreciate everyone coming out today because what we have here is unique. It doesn't occur in a lot of villages and towns around. The Christmas parade, our Halloween, those things are pure Americana. And we hope to continue to keep those things alive here in Buchanan as much as possible. And there are going to be some hard choices to make, but with your help and everyone else that's here today and those in the television audience, we're going to get through this, you know. And there are going to be some growing pains, but we're going to get through this. And one of the things that we have is our proximity to the greatest metropolitan area in the world. You know, I go down to the city, it takes me 55 minutes. Granted, I leave at 6 in the morning sometimes, but that's there. And that's a selling point. Our services, that's a selling point. Where I live out on Lake Drive, we've had a number of couples to come in, not without any kids, who now all have children. So it's going to grow, it's going to continue to flourish, and we'll be okay. So thank you so much.
Can I make a comment? I just want to let everybody here know that myself and Cheech, we're both ex-law enforcement officers. Cheech spent 22 years, as a police officer in New York City. I spent 35 years as a supervisory customs officer in the federal government. And we had a very good sit-down a week ago Friday with the officers here, except for one who was on midnight to 11 to 7 in the morning. And we came, I think that those officers went away happy with what we had to say. We were both adamant about wanting to keep the police department. I myself made the comment, I don't mind paying, as Nick says, I don't mind paying double the taxes, but we also represent everybody in the village. There are people who don't want to pay double the taxes. But we left that meeting with the four officers, excuse me, and Cheech and myself, and we felt that we had a basis that where we would go forward and work out the actual mechanics of going forward and keeping those officers here as a police force. As was just mentioned about the overtime situation, there's many times there's a win-win situation where actually the village saves money, the officers make more money, and they work more overtime. For most people, if anybody here else works in law enforcement, overtime is the be-all and end-all, because most salaries are not that great in law enforcement. They are in Westchester County, I know, and Nassau County, so we're an exception in the country. Cheech will tell you they're certainly not in New York City. They're comparatively speaking, probably the most underpaid law enforcement people. But I want to emphasize, we're working with the PBA that represents these officers in this village. We want these people here. We want what you want, and we're working with them. I really don't know where these rumors get started about this. We're looking at rumors that are saying this, and myself and Cheech and the officers are doing this. So I don't know where that comes about at all. I'm pretty sure, unless these officers were lying to us, and I definitely don't think that's the case at all, they came away satisfied. Would you like to add anything, Cheech?
Yeah, I just you handle that beautifully. I just wanted to say something about something in your email, Mr. Horgan, about the part about treating our police department with such disrespect. I know a little bit about the importance of community policing and response time. I've spent half of my adult life working for probably one of the finest police departments in the country, the NYPD. And, speaking for myself, and I'm sure the rest of the board here would probably agree with me, we have nothing but respect and appreciate every one of these police officers here in Buchanan. We understand how difficult it is for them to be away from their families, work holidays, work crazy shifts, work weekends, and it always feels sometimes that we don't say thank you and they're not appreciated. But you talk to police officers and that's not what they're looking for. They're not looking for thank you or I appreciate it, because they'll say that's part of the job. So I just wanted to say that we do need to keep the police department here, and we as a board are going to make sure that we explore every possible option. And like Rich said, we had a wonderful sit down with the police officers. I walked away very optimistic, and I think they did too. So again, just to reiterate what he says, whoever's going around spreading these rumors, we're very transparent. You can come talk to us. Brian, Chief Tubbs will tell you, I'm as approachable as anybody on this board, especially when it comes to the police department. If you have questions, ask us. We'd be more than happy to answer them. That being said, I just wanted to thank every one of these police officers for everything they do, and thank you all for coming. It's nice to see that we have a community that cares about our police department, because I know the hell I do. So thank you.
You're right there? Stand 2 more minutes? So, I just wanted to respond to a couple of things on your letter specifically, okay? For one thing, you said, why not ask what we would want if the highway department was dismantled? And the opportunities for savings is very minimal in a lot of our services. You know, because you mentioned that we already pay the town taxes. I think my town taxes are $170 a year or something. We pay for certain things that everybody can use in the town, certain shared services, certain parks and swimming pools and recreation things. It's a small amount. If we were getting our garbage services from the town, we would be paying more tax to the town. That 170 does not cover full services. The town tax rate to village residents is adjusted for what we provide on our own. So what you'd wind up doing is shifting who you pay the taxes to. And you know, if you're going to have 2 guys in a garbage truck, whether you pay the town for that service or you pay Buchanan for that service, you're paying about the same thing. Any changes are fairly small. And that's commonly the case with services. You know, you wind up shifting the costs to another municipality, not saving the costs. Yeah, if you went to all state police, the state would provide police, you'd have lousy coverage. Not disrespecting them, if they're on the highway giving speeding tickets, they do a fine job, but like you said, they're not going to be everywhere. They're spread thin. Yeah, that would be a big opportunity for savings, but clearly that's not what people want, here or there. So also I wanted to say, you know, a couple other things. You asked for the input of the community, but have failed us by not sharing the results. And we don't send you know, everything out to people, but those results were shared in a meeting, and if you can't get here, those meetings are there's a link to those meetings on YouTube on the village website. You can go and pick any date and watch the meeting. You know, you might want to make some popcorn and grab a beer because at least half of the meeting is very boring. But
I think they're scintillating, Nick. Yeah, I think they're great.
Something for everybody. But you know, but that information is public, and also I you know, again on that survey, when we have some more specifics, I'm hoping that we'll take a little more time and prepare the survey more carefully, because it's going to have real information, and then we will get the public input. We will also, as the mayor said, if any major action would require a referendum. Can I ask the village attorney, or Kevin, what is the, for a referendum, is that, what requires a referendum and what does not? Can we just get a little explanation of that?
Yeah, I don't have that memorized. Abolishing the police department, absolutely. The way that would go is it would be a permissive referendum. So you would actually, I would write a local law abolishing the police department. You would pass the local law. Normally, when you pass a local law, it goes into effect. This one's subject to a referendum, which means it doesn't go into effect for 30 days. During that time, the residents, or whoever's concerned, you need 20% of the registered voters, and they prepare a petition, and they say to you, we're objecting to that local law. And then depending on the time period, if it's very close to a general election, you put it on. If not, you hold a special election. And that's how it works. You can't, I mean, you would technically be abolishing it that night, the night you pass the local law, but, you know, Kevin would have to post it. You'd have to tell the public it's subject to a permissive referendum, that they had 30 days. And I would think that most of your residents would be forcing that to go to a vote. The other way to do it is you can voluntarily do it by referendum. And you might choose to do that. So you wouldn't say to your residents, you have 30 days. If you want to petition, go ahead. You would say, we're going to put this on a ballot. We're going to ask for a vote. So
it could be decided by ballot.
Right.
Yeah.
But the point being that people shouldn't be afraid that you can just pass a local law and it's done, you know, tomorrow. You know, that's never going to happen.
So
hope that helps.
Thank you very much. No, it does.
Is that based on a majority, with 50 plus 1, or is that a true? Does it have to be a certain 3/4 of the residents that voted against it?
What do you mean? To get on the ballot?
Popular vote?
No, if it was put to a popular vote, it'd be
What?
majority.
Yeah, the majority vote, yeah. But
Democracy, great thing.
to get on the ballot, you just need 20% of the voters to say to them, we're objecting, or we want to vote.
Right.
So that's how that goes.
And we wouldn't be doing that if the prevailing public sentiment was against it anyway. So I'm going to share a couple of things from the survey. Because, you know, we heard from 160 people, okay, and asked if one department had to be eliminated, police A, garbage and recycling B, the highway department, which is all the other maintenance and thing, D, the wastewater plant.
Can I just step in and ask you one quick question? Why was police A? It's not alphabetical.
Yeah,
Is it because it was
I don't know. Is that like, you think that was meant to be a suggestive, tricky thing?
Possibly, yes. I do.
Like in school, when if I didn't know the answer, I picked B.
See.
See? See, so there you go. So it was a good spot. But there was no intent, believe me, there was no intent with anything like that. 33%, if one department had to be eliminated, said police. 14% said the garbage and recycling. And like I said, if we went to the town for that, we'd be paying the same thing anyway. 13% said the highway department. 38%, the largest number, said the wastewater plant, because I can't curse on TV, can I?
No.
Okay. Because it's just a bunch of wastewater. But we discovered something as we started doing our homework after the announcement of the plant closure. We discovered that one of our best things in this village, one of our best resources for drawing new business is that wastewater plant. Because a lot of places don't want to go anyplace and build if they're going to be relying on septic. The sewer plant happens to be one of our best resources. We don't recommend you visit it, but it's out there, at the end of the road in the woods, sort of, and is one of our best resources for attracting business. You know, there are a lot of developers that, you know, there's a lot and it's connected to sewers. Sounds good. If I go 3 miles away, you know, it's all set. You know, so while that 38% said get rid of the wastewater plant, you know, there would be complications to do that anyway. But there were things we discovered as we go forward. We discovered more. So, yeah. But thank you for taking the time to write that letter. And you can write. A lot of people can't write these days.
That's
There
right.
you go.
Okay, I just want to make a few announcements. I'm sorry. The next Buchanan 2021 meeting is next Tuesday here at Village Hall. And also, so everyone knows, there is a New York Times article. I spoke to the reporter last week. It's going to be in the real estate section. It will be in the June, I'll announce it in the June newsletter, the date that will come out. So the reporter was quite impressed with our community. Okay, sorry.
Elizabeth Ross, Elizabeth Fiala, Craft Lane. I live in the community for about, 14 years. And it's breaking my heart seeing how the police department, in my opinion, is treated. Every few months we have to come and worry about we're going to lose our police department. I'm a mother of two. I have two small kids. Now my son's a teenager. He's riding his bike off the street. The other day, can't find my son. He doesn't have his cell phone on. So what do I do as a panic mom? I call the police and ask for help. Thank God for Officer Rob Buddy, and who found him and told me where he was. And then another time, Shane, Officer Farrell, told me, "Oh, do you know your son's down the street?" No, I didn't know. But little things like that mean a lot to a mom who has quote unquote preteens and teenagers. As you know, in this village, we have I don't want to say this, but some unwanted people, and we need a police department to protect our children. I want my children to be able to ride their bike around town, be able to go to the park, to do things. I don't want to feel like I have to worry about who's protecting my child. Why is my child if something, God forbid, something happens to my child. And it's sad because people don't know how lucky we are to have the police department. Chief Tubbs, you guys, your men and women do an excellent job protecting this community. People don't realize what they do in the middle of the night, driving up and down, giving what they do, making sure a garage door is shut, knocking on a door, asking, is everything okay? I grew up in Ossining. Yes, I was fortunate. We had that. Now, if we lose that, it's going to be really sad. And also, being a volunteer on the ambulance corps, I do about 250 calls a year, 200, somewhere around there, between 200 and 250 calls a year. Being a volunteer, I don't get paid. I do it because I love it and I want to help my community. In the middle of the night, when I'm going into someone's house in Buchanan and stuff is hitting the fan, and you know what? I'm thankful that there's a police officer there with us to help us. I'm a volunteer, I don't get paid. None of us on the ambulance corps, we're volunteering, we don't get paid. And for my safety, I can't thank the Buchanan police for always being there. Not once have I ever went on a call without them there, without them supporting us. If we needed help, lifting, doing something, no, not one of the officers ever said, no, they can't do it, it's not their job. They're always doing above and beyond. And that takes a lot, because there's some people out there who don't want to do it because it's not their job. And I hope you guys hear me, because I see you guys looking down.
No, I hear you. I'm listening to every word, and I've got a comment to make after.
This is important to me, my community, my neighbors, and I really hope that all 5 of you realize that you guys need to work together with our police department. Put whatever you guys have aside. If you have anything, issues aside, that's my personal opinion. If you do, I don't want to know about it if you don't. But my personal opinion is that you guys need to work together and show more support for our police department.
Thank you, Liz. I think, I would like to think that this whole community works together, and that's what makes this community work. But I will tell you something people do realize, because I can't tell you how many emails, calls I've gotten from Montrose, Verplank, our Tri-Village area, people asking me, Teresa, how can we become part of Buchanan? And of course, you know, it's a Tri-Village. We'd love to have those people, but the problem is we can't. So, but they realize the services we have are something they don't have, and that's why they want to come here.
And I do that. And also, my neighbor, she couldn't be here tonight. I'm not going to read her letter.
Okay.
But she moved into the neighborhood a few years ago. She works long hours, and it's a letter basically saying that she wants to support the police department. She hopes that you guys are about being supportive to the police department. And she just, you know, witnesses, you know, in the middle of the night, looking out the window, how she appreciates a police car coming up and down the street. Or at the time she had to call the police for something, and they were there for her, because where she came from, I believe Yonkers, the call time was like for a while.
Too long.
Yeah, and it's too long. And you know what? With our community, we're small. We have to stick together and work together.
Absolutely.
And as a volunteer going out in the middle of the night, I'll tell you what, it would scare me going into a person's house, not having a police department, having an officer there. Because you know what? I have two teenagers now. And is someone going to explain to them what happened to their mom if some EDP violent person hurts me? And God willing, God hopefully, that never happens to me or to my partners on the ambulance. Thank you.
All right,
And
thanks,
I'm going
Liz.
to give you this letter.
Sure, please, thank you. Yeah, Kevin will take it so we can file that for you. Okay, anyone else like to speak? Okay, Jeremy, yes. One of the members of the Buchanan 2021.
Hi.
Hi.
Jeremy Basso, 119 Bannon Avenue. Bear with me because many of the things that I was hoping to address have already been mentioned, and I don't think we're going to be repeating ourselves. So, community policing is an incredibly important part of, I think, what makes the village the place we all know and love. And I'd like to just give two quick, simple examples that I haven't heard mentioned because I think there's probably going to be more people watching this meeting than there has been others since this rumor mill is circulating. And I'd also like to talk about some unintended consequences as well as some things that I think... Can you hear me better now? Some things that maybe caused some of these rumors to sort of circulate, and I think it all relates to an unintended consequence, and I think when we pull this together it'll make sense. But first, that Friday, I think it was March 2nd, there was that big nor'easter storm. I happened to be out of town. We had a fairly large tree in my front yard that went down. 7 minutes, I have cameras, so I could see the time that the tree hit the ground, and I could see that in the middle of the nor'easter, Officer Farrell, my driveway was completely blocked. The tree fell clear across almost my entire property, including the driveway access, climbed over a stone wall to knock on my front door because he knew that I was likely at work and my wife and kids would be home to make sure that they were okay and if they needed to get out and if there was anything that needed to be done. 7 minutes in the middle of a storm. I think that's unheard of, and I was surprised when I saw somebody on video when I was going through reviewing the footage to see if I had any other damage. And I was like, who the heck's climbing over my wall? And then I look as he approached the front door camera, and it was Officer Farrell. And the next day, coincidentally, and this isn't a story that I learned about until today, my cousins own Little Bear Wheel Alignment in Buchanan, and they got a call on a Saturday afternoon from the Buchanan police to a personal cell phone number because it was an emergency contact listed. And these are things I think that many people don't understand that our police do. So they're doing a lot of things that stop incidents before they happen as opposed to showing up after an incident occurs to gather information. And I don't think that it's easy to put a price tag or to relate a statistic to prevention as opposed to gathering of information after an incident occurs. Long and short, there was someone on the property at a time of day that likely never has any activity. The shop was clearly closed. Officer Farrell, I guess, had a hunch that something didn't seem right, asked the gentleman what he was doing there. He responded that he was doing storm cleanup. Officer Farrell called. My cousin answered his cell phone. He said, nope, no storm cleanup here. So instead of the cars that were customers having their vehicles damaged or any objects that belonged to the business stolen from the property, my other cousin showed up. They agreed that it was in fact not anyone that they had hired, and the person was on about their business. Was it a crime to have been arrested? Probably not. Would it likely have been? He was up to no good, and he was snooping around the back of the building, and he wouldn't have said he was there for storm cleanup if he was just looking around. With respect to the unintended consequences and the rumors, so there's no shortage of information. That's why there's all of these people here today in support of the police, right? And I think what's really transpired is maybe not everyone is communicating clearly with their position personally or directions that are given. I was in the chief's office today, and maybe I wasn't supposed to be nosy, but I'm interested in finding out what's going on.
You're a resident. You have every...
Maybe not this much of...
Oh, you're being really... It's fine. You're a resident.
Maybe not.
Well,
yeah. Uh-oh.
If I get a parking ticket on my car, we'll know why. So I saw a letter on village letterhead that indicated that the village at this time was exploring all options and was not hiring or promoting. So that's not a rumor when we say that we're... The assumption is it's a de facto cancellation of the police department because naturally a police department can't function if it doesn't have staff. But I don't think that was the intention of the directive. However, that's where I believe somehow or another, I saw that today, clearly this...
The village letterhead, you saw a village letter directing I'm not
a statement
understanding.
that the village was currently not hiring nor promoting in the police department.
I have not, we haven't sent anything out.
Chief, I
Do you have
can
it?
speak to the letter. I read it upside down.
Well, it's kind of strange because I directed him, the chief, to start the hiring process.
I don't know the
The
date on the letter.
promotional thing is a whole nother internal personnel issue, and that's nothing we're going to discuss because it's a personnel issue. But remember, we had to meet together as a board to have a conversation about things.
So I'm not,
Okay.
I'm not interested in discussing personnel issues.
Okay, good.
I'm
'Cause
interested
we
in
can't.
understanding where these rumors started from.
Yeah, I'd love to
So
know.
I don't know
I'd
the
love
date
to
on the
know.
letter. I
Want to
wasn't,
address that?
I wasn't privy to it, but if you want to
Okay.
address it, you can.
Do you want to finish, or do you want me to address it?
No, I'd like Jeremy to finish. He's got the podium. Thank you.
So, we're employers as a village. Whether we directly or indirectly, we employ people. I employ people. I was once an employee. I wouldn't feel comfortable continuing a career in an organization that looked like it was a sinking ship, particularly if there was a rumor that, or there was a document that was issued by the corporate headquarters, if you will, in this case, the village, indicating we're not hiring or promoting. I'm not talking about the promotion as an isolated component here, but I think that we could understand why the recent rumor of the other police officer who's potentially leaving, because that person is younger and looking to make sure that they don't end up in a position that gives them no negotiating power. So as a smart employee, they chose to find greener pastures because what I gathered from that letter or memo or whatever it was called was a lack of support from the village. I think it was really promising to find out in the past 24 to 48 hours there was a change and a directive, which you just mentioned, to begin the hiring process. But then the next component of this is, if we're hiring as someone who would be considering employment as an outside party that would be thinking of submitting a resume to the village, it would be really important to know that the village board supports the police unequivocally. Who would take a job if they think they may get axed? Now, there's risk to employment in any capacity, but I think that as a village, if we're really interested in attracting the best qualified candidates, and not just those candidates that are maybe looking to resign from position A and go to position B before some sort of other issue they have going on would catch up to them, would be important to know that the board supports the police and is interested in maintaining a police force. I'm not saying you've said that you don't, but I'm saying that the unintended consequence of the conversation and the statements of not hiring gives that image, and it would be important to me, and I think to a lot of the other people here, to understand that you absolutely 100% support the police and will do everything in your power, provided that a referendum isn't passed by the residents to indicate otherwise, to stand behind them and help them maintain their employment and the protection that they provide to the village.
Yes, we've all said that we support the police department and we'd like to see it continue. We're 2 years out from closure, but, you know, we need to listen to the residents.
Indian
and what
Point
they're
closure.
Indian Point
I
closure.
understand.
Yeah, we all know what's coming down the pike. But I'd like to make another statement too. As a smart employee, like you said, this board does not want to lose any of its officers, but we also understand, and we're not going to stop someone that can better themselves also. Going to a larger department to perhaps be able to be more promotable and move on in their career. We wish, because we're not mentioning names, we wish that person would stay. That person, that officer, has become part of the community. And I know that officer
We're suffering
likes
a major loss.
being here. Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. So, but yeah, we just, in fairness to this officer, we're not going to mention the name.
I would venture to say that if we do an exit interview with that officer, we will find that it was the recent lack of spoken support from the get-go that was the catalyst that drove the final departure.
But Trustee Pasquale and Trustee Funchin had a conversation with all of the officers.
So that's
I was
true.
not there, but,
I understand.
Okay.
Again, the rumor mill, this is a little tiny town. And
Yeah,
lots of stuff
well,
goes on, but
yeah,
I think
it is.
what's generally happened is there's been a series of information, including this memo that the chief is going to address in a moment, that kind of had a bunch of eyebrows go up, that must have circulated internally that caused some people to maybe think that what was said and what is going on are two different things, because the memo contradicts everything else that's been said. I don't want to get hung up on it. We'll let him address it.
Well,
But
maybe that memo was where the rumors got started, because I don't think that came from anybody up here.
we'll look forward to finding the answers, but more
We'll
importantly,
discuss it.
to just
We'll look into it.
solidifying the overall support for the police, which sounds like has really been top of mind for everyone here recently.
Okay, it's fair.
Thank you for your
Thanks.
observation.
Thank you, Jeremy. As always, thank you. No, we're going to have, after an executive session, I'd like to have a conversation about that, the memo and a few other things, if you're available.
I'm available.
Super. Anyone else? Okay. I got two people. Okay, good.
Good.
You're first.
Ladies and gentlemen, hello. My name is Christopher DeSanto. I'm here with my wife, Tina Marie DeSanto. We are new residents. We are at 213 Craft Lane.
Okay.
And in the mid-2000s, I rented on Lindsay. And it was a short period of time. I rented with the option to buy, and unfortunately the market crashed and I was unable to purchase the home. So I moved to Putnam Valley, and it has taken me 9 years to get back to Buchanan, and that has always been my goal. I am from Ossining. I'm a business owner in Ossining since 2002. My wife and I got married about 3 years ago, and it was our goal to get to Buchanan because I knew this is where we wanted to live, where we wanted to raise our family, and I feel that Buchanan is so unique in comparison to all the towns around. I will not stand up here and beat a dead horse. I support the police. I will say that as a new resident, finding a home here was not easy for us. It could have been a budget issue. The question that we would ask our realtor was, we want to find a house in Buchanan, we want a great deal, and the answer we would get, and she's a Croton resident, she would say, that doesn't exist. You're not going to find a great deal. Buchanan is such a great place. You're not going to find a phenomenal deal in a place where everybody wants to live, and there's a million reasons why everybody wants to live in Buchanan, and we are well aware of many of those. I will say, since we moved in, I was met by Officer Buddy, who immediately introduced himself and said, please call me Rob, before I could say, nice to meet you, officer. Officer Buddy told me that he was the welcoming committee. He wanted us to feel safe. Officer Buddy gave me his home address and told me where he lives and that he was there, and if there was anything we needed, to please reach out to him. I mentioned to him that I own a local business, and if he ever needed anything from me, to please reach back. And his response was, that's not why I'm here. I'm here for you. My business works for many municipalities. We work for Montrose Fire Department, we work for Cortland Manor, we work for the U.S. Marshals, Homeland Security.
Okay, do you want to give a plug to your business? Because I'm curious what it is myself.
I own several businesses. My business in Ossining is Dream Toys Auto Customs, and we run a DBA called Scene Safety Specialist, and that DBA specializes in outfitting safety and security vehicles. We work for many fire departments, many municipalities. We work for a lot of armed services. So we work hand in hand with a lot of officers. And that being said, I will tell you, as Mr. Fiala addressed before, I lived through what happened in Ossining, and I was active with that. I don't think that the end result was great, and it's an ongoing problem that we still have in Ossining. Now, I am in the village. I cannot say that it directly affected response times in my area, but I'm very involved. I speak with the residents. We see that it's an ongoing problem. Specifically, the reason I would like this opportunity, and I greatly appreciate it, I have a rule that when you walk in late to a meeting, you don't speak, but I apologize.
That's fine. That's why we're here.
I closed my shop early to be here tonight. You, Mayor, I heard you mention several times that these are rumors, and That is correct, and that's why my wife and I are here tonight. We heard neighbors speaking of us losing potentially our police department, and the importance of that is what drove us here. I had a very specific incident occur. We lived in Putnam Valley for this 9-year gap before we got back to Buchanan. I had ADT security at that house. I'm not here to knock ADT. I had a very specific incident occur. I was at work, I had clients, I have many employees. I was very busy and I received a phone call that my home alarm was going off and I didn't know why. I was on the phone speaking with somebody when I received a call waiting from another 888 number. This happened within the last 3 years. I was trying to listen to this person and said, I think I'm getting another phone call from ADT, please hold. And I switched over. Now, I cannot speak as of right now today, but I can tell you that 3 years ago, in Putnam Valley, we had our part-time sheriff's department and we had the state troopers with mutual aid. The second phone call that I received was from another ADT office who had me on a conference call with a state trooper that wanted directions to my home from Oscawana Lake Road because they did not know how to get to my house. Here I am with clients in front of me. I'm panicking that my home is potentially getting broken into. And I am left with the burden of giving directions over a 3-way call while my other line is beeping still. It was mind-boggling to me. It bothers me, it gets me emotional to think that it wasn't an ADT issue, it wasn't a state trooper issue. The issue came down to we didn't have that tight community bond. Now, I could beat a dead horse. I argued with ADT. This went on for months of writing letters back and forth, and the bottom line came down to they're there to provide a service and they can only do the best of their ability and the rest they rely on the police departments. And in that particular instance, I was let down and I was left shaking, got in my car and perhaps went faster than I should to get home to meet an officer to make sure that everything was okay. And it scared the life out of me. And in moving to Buchanan, in finding our home, we saw our home on a Monday. We were in contract by Friday because our realtor told us, this is not going to last, Christopher. If you want it, you have to jump. We paid $10,000 over the asking price for our home because we got into a bidding war and I said, honey, if we can afford to do this, we are going to do it. And during that time, I didn't imagine our closing was January 4th. I did not imagine that 4 or 5 months later, I would be at a board meeting discussing the possibility, the rumor, of us losing our local police department. And as everybody else has said here tonight, it seems like we're working on potentially fixing that problem. I will say one thing as both an Ossining resident for many, many years and Ossining business owner, our services here are phenomenal. I called and spoke to our supervisor, Bob, and pardon me, I do not know his last name.
Wheeler, Bob Wheeler, our highway department foreman.
Yes, ma'am. Within 2 days of owning the home, I called and spoke with him to get an idea of what happens, garbage pickup and such. And this gentleman drove to my home and left in my mailbox the list of pickups and such. When I got home that evening and we put that on our refrigerator, my wife and I were just blown away. So
they pick up bulk every week.
What an amazing thing. Yeah, I know.
I don't know that everybody would agree, and I can only speak on behalf of myself. I feel that we are very blessed, Mayor, as you had said yourself. I don't know the budgets. I'm very new here, and I plan on being as active as I possibly can. But I would be curious, as another gentleman mentioned before, that if we needed to cut back and strategize on how we work these budgets, I personally feel that for our home, we have more pickups than what's necessary. And based on other towns that I have lived in and I have done business in, I feel that we are blessed, but perhaps overblessed. As you had mentioned before, Mayor, we may not be saving money. I'm certainly not here to encourage us to trip over dollars to get to dimes. But that being said, if budgets were laid out in front of a group of folks like yourself that I'm sure have more knowledge of budgets than I do, if there were things that I saw that we could cut back on, I would say easily once a week garbage pickup. I don't know the cost savings there, but I could see easily, I would think most people would agree we don't need that twice. Now the bulk pickup, we're coming from Putnam Valley. Bulk pickup, trash day in general, was once a year in September, and we just made do. I don't think it was the greatest, but when I saw that there was bulk pickup, and Bob told me on the phone, Christopher, we were speaking specifically about items in the home. Christopher, we have bulk pickup once a month, and Friday is your bulk pickup day. I was just amazed.
Yeah.
And still, 4 months in, there's nowhere that we'd rather be than here. You, sir, mentioned the commute to the city. This was our target. My wife, she commutes as well, maybe a little earlier than you, to be honest. But this is where we want to stay. This is where we want to raise our family. We obviously don't want our taxes to quintuple, but we are willing to invest in our police department. And I wouldn't have felt right if I stayed at work tonight making money and not come here. I wanted to voice the opinion. I wasn't sure if there would be new residents here, but I've heard from the residents that have been here, and I wanted to express my opinion as a new resident and somebody that literally fought tooth and nail. I work 80+ hours a week, and my goal for the past 9 years has literally been to solidify my home, our future children's home here in Buchanan.
Well, welcome to Buchanan. So everyone's point is well taken, and I think you've heard from the board. So it just puts more pressure on us to find more resources, more money going forward, because we're hearing about all the services also, and everyone wants to keep the services. So, and hey, like I said, I'm spoiled. I want to keep them too. So everything is still in flux. We have 2 more years before the closure, but there's things that are happening, and I said potentially all this might be a moot point with how we have to figure out the money in the end. We'll know better next year at budget time where we are. But I think I can speak for the board. They're agreeing that they would like to keep the police department in that service. So, and we will discuss that more with the Buchanan 2021, the other services also. Because we have to do our due diligence, too. You know, we can't just say to people, okay, you know, we're going to do this, going to do that. You know, you have to do due diligence. And that's fair to all the residents. Okay. Any other board members? Any other comments? There's Bob. Come on up, Bob. Will there be anybody else after this? You know, if anybody wants to speak, I'm not going to stop anybody from speaking, but we still have our regular meeting, yeah. And as I said, everyone's welcome to the Buchanan 2021 meeting.
Let's cut it off.
Robert Lepika from 169 Colton Street. Mayor, trustees, thank you for your job that you're doing. Unfortunately, it's a tough one, and
the mic's below you there.
Unfortunately, it's a tough one, and I realize that. I also want to compliment you. The house that went down, you guys did a great job. A long time coming, but it finally came down. We did it. So compliment you for that.
It was a long legal process.
Yes,
and unfortunately.
And, you know, at least it came down.
Mm-hmm.
So at this point, you know, dealing with the facts, what does it cost the village to have these guys patrol? Does anybody have that number? Because I didn't hear it anywhere mentioned.
Kevin.
$1.4 million. $1.4 million.
It's about a quarter of our budget.
Now, does that include when they stand on Broadway to let people in and out of Entergy?
That comes in as a revenue. We do
that comes in, but that goes into the general fund.
Into the general fund.
So that doesn't really offset their cost.
That's not part of the 1.4.
So what would their if we took the 1.4 and took away what Entergy gives us for the crossing, what would they really cost us? Because that's overtime, and you're putting their overtime into that salary, into the cost. of the 1.4, correct?
What's that?
Correct me if I'm
1.4.
wrong, our budget, our village budget is a little over $6 million now.
Yes.
So we've figured out that the police department budget is 1.4.
Okay. And
So
the crossing?
that's expenses.
That goes into the general
65,
fund?
that's a general fund revenue, correct.
And how much is that?
I think we budget about 65,000.
65, so it comes down a little bit?
A little bit.
Okay, and then we also count in the overtime that these guys made from the pipeline and everything else that was going on?
That was previous year budget, not this
Previous year budget, not this one?
Yes.
Okay, so at least 1.4 million.
Right.
Is it a lot?
And the benefits probably go up 65,000 a year.
The fact that Rita retired, does that budget get cut in half?
No, because we have to pay overtime.
With Rita leaving, we could probably hire 5 more people.
Is that how many people it'll take to replace Mike? Is that what you're saying?
Oh, yes, because he's got a lot of knowledge, and I mean, you got to compliment him. He knows everything. And you call him, he knows everything, which is great, and that's difficult to replace. I mean, the other question is going to be, have we looked at trying to hire people and put them through the academy? Because right now my niece is trying to get into the academy, and the numbers that are coming out are like 50,000, 40,000. Instead of paying somebody.
Talk to your chief.
No?
No,
Would it be
yeah.
cheaper or would it cost more?
It's ultimately, Bob, it'll probably cost more because what would happen is that we don't do the high volume of diverse calls needed to train somebody.
Train, okay.
So realistically, off the top of my head, just spitballing it, they would probably have to, a new guy or girl coming out of the academy would probably have to ride with a seasoned officer somewhere between 18 months and 2 years.
Okay.
To get enough,
So not feasible.
to handle enough variety of calls and enough of those calls so they know what they're doing on their own.
And you don't want them,
Yeah.
I mean, obviously we have a police department that has one.
Right.
And I think
One guy at a time. And
our
that's
last officer that we got all spanking new, all squeaky clean was Officer Tubbs, Chief Tubbs. Yeah, that was a few years ago. Yeah, 36?
36.
Yeah, so.
And you can't make them stay.
Nah. I remember Brian used to be the umpire in the Portland Senior League, right? So, I mean, at this point, what's it actually cost us to keep these guys in your actual taxes that we're talking about?
Well, we can't go on today's,
Oh, I know, I
you know,
realize
so
that,
we
but-
have to do
But
projections,
the other
but
projection is, what would it cost us to have coverage by either the county or the state? Has that number been thrown out there?
we're doing our due diligence. Those numbers will be out by the end of the year, and I will tell you this, we are assuming that we're not going to save money.
So, at that point, if we get rid of them, we're still at the same budget.
Roughly, yeah,
So
roughly.
why even- why- then this whole conversation is a moot point, if it's costing us the same. But now we gotta hire 2.
Maybe. That's not a definite
I think
confirmation.
Courtney's leaving.
Well, we're not mentioning names.
We're not gonna mention Courtney's
To, you know, in fairness to the person, you know, think about this. If we were all potentially going to another job, we wouldn't want
She unfortunately, I mean, I think she
somebody
liked it here.
calling the new,
But now
well, she did.
Yeah, and now, you know, I mean, this is a nice home community. Everybody knows everybody, which is great.
Yep,
You know,
it is.
These aren't officers to me. That's Shane, that's Rob, this is Brian. We all have a personal relationship.
Well, we all
And,
remember
you know, where
Joe
else you
O'Toole,
get that?
too.
I
Yeah,
mean, the county guy shows up, I might know him, I might not know him.
yeah.
But I can tell you what, the county guy ain't gonna look at your kid and say, you know what, I'm gonna bring you back home. Or even the trooper.
No.
One expression there was, one trooper said to me, does everybody gotta go to jail to a rookie trooper? Had the guy handcuffed to the wall. And did he do something stupid? Yeah, but you know what? Does everybody need to go to jail? And this is what you get with Buchanan is, you know what, we know each other. You know, if it's not, and you know.
I just don't get that analogy. Can you?
Well, somebody pulled somebody over for something stupid and brought him into, because he started talking back, brought him into the barracks, handcuffed him to the wall.
Okay.
And then the one guy comes in and goes, you know who the guy is, you know his aunt and this and that, and does everybody have to go to jail?
Oh, okay.
You know
I
what I'm
got
saying?
you.
Does everybody
Okay.
gotta go to jail?
Okay.
You
I
know how
got
it
you.
goes,
No,
Chaz.
hey, I hear you, man.
Some people get a little courtesy.
I got you. I just
I mean,
didn't
going
get
back to it, I mean,
first.
do we really have to talk about getting rid of the guys when and plus this adds value to our community. And I love seeing Shane and Rob and Courtney and
Mike,
Anthony drive up and
Anthony.
down the street 8 times a day. You're not gonna see a county cop doing that, or a trooper. And then the other thing is, we have a law for parking from November to April. Nobody's gonna enforce that. So we might as well just get rid of that law. And then the other thing is, if we get rid of the police, then we must get rid of the court system. And if we get rid of the police and the court system, why do we have a highway? Why do we even have a village?
Well, these are the questions we're going to be dealing with, Bob.
It shouldn't even be a question.
Yeah.
Because
So we want our
what
services.
functioning
That's
village,
what we're saying.
What functioning village doesn't have a police force? Functioning village with a municipality. Name one. Anybody
There's a
name
lot
one?
of, there's a lot of that have part-time. There's a lot of communities that have
A village with a
part-time.
functioning police force. Who has part-time? Somers?
Somers, I'm trying to think, there's several.
But are they
Cold Spring.
functioning?
Cold Spring's a village.
You know what I'm saying? That's a town. Somers is a town.
No, Cold Spring.
Oh, no,
Isn't that a
but
village?
Somers. Somers
Yeah.
is a town. Somers is a
So
town.
we're not even, you know what, Bob, we're
we're
veering off the
You know what I'm
street
saying?
here.
A town, yes, a town I can understand. but they
We've
got
had the conversation, everyone has spoken, we're all kind of on the same page. The point was well taken from the residents. They want their their police department, and that's the direction we're having. So what we have to do as a board to mitigate the tax increase and the loss, we really, have to continue to work on these other options. So, and as I said before, it might even be a moot point in the end. It might even be, so we're not doubling the taxes.
But
Who
these
knows?
guys shouldn't even be, I mean, this shouldn't be on the conversation.
Well, you know what? I don't know how the rumors started
Can I say
and why,
something? Bob,
you know.
do you think this board would be a responsible board if for the last year we did not look into every option
Well,
and weigh every option and
Yeah.
try to assess the cost? Do you think that would have been responsible on our part to not look
No,
at every
it's not,
option?
but here's the
So
thing
the
that-
fact that we're looking at every option doesn't mean we're going to choose every option. We're going to choose one. But we need to do that, and people are jumping to conclusions.
Well, Nick, you send out a survey. The survey basically, as a lot of the residents took, it focused on the police force. That survey, obviously, a lot of people in this room said they want to get rid of the police force. So the survey wasn't well-written, it wasn't well-taken.
Agreed.
So the community got up and roared.
Agreed,
So
agreed. And
unfortunately,
we've tried to explain that
But
and
here's the other thing,
and
is
acknowledge that.
I've also heard, and many other people in this community have heard, we want to keep Mayberry. We can't keep Mayberry. Mayberry belongs upstate. We're in the richest county, one of the richest counties in this country. And how do you keep Mayberry? You can't. So with that, we need change. And I don't think you guys have embraced change enough.
Oh, no, we have the
So somebody on one of the
picture.
surveys said, raise taxes, geniuses. I don't know if you realize it or not, but Buchanan is in Westchester.
Yeah.
Yes, but
Some of the comments
but
were
what do we do?
interesting.
We have a master. Here I go one step further, Nick. We were on that master plan. I came to it. We had a master plan from 2005, I think it was.
It's about 10
We've
years.
done less than 5% of that master plan. And we're entertaining doing another master plan, but we've done less than 5%, and that master plan has a great blueprint of what we should do.
Right.
And we
Yes
don't
and
want to
no.
accept it. And the question, here, I'll throw this at you.
All right.
The lady that was there, the consultant, I said to her, why would we do this again if we have done less than 3%? You know what she said to me? Whoa, 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 because then I'm pointing at her, why do we have her? And she said to me, we don't implement, we only recommend. You know what that means? The implementation has to come from the 5.
Right.
And if we don't implement, why do we even have a master plan?
Okay, Bob, let me correct something.
I agree
That
with
was in 2005. Times have changed.
Yes.
We're embracing change, right?
Okay.
So 2005, most of these board members got on in 2009, 2010. They recommend every 10 years
Yeah, we
that
should do
it's
this over again.
updated.
Correct.
So that's what we are trying to get through now, and on top of it, another layer of Indian points at closure and potential economic development of that area. I do agree, but any
No,
I'll tell you about the
I agree
Cortland,
with
the
you.
last one. The
We need
Cortland,
more
the
embracement
Cortland, the
of
last Cortland one was the same thing. They've hired other people this time around because I was on the Cortland master plan. They've hired other people to help them implement. They didn't have a lot of implementation in their first one. So a master plan is just a roadmap.
Yes.
Now our roadmap has very much changed from 2005. Very much changed.
The village residents can go on that master plan, it's on our website, and you can look and see what it says. It has great ideas. Great ideas. I'm not
Yeah.
making them up. They're right there.
So some of those
I will-
ideas we'll keep.
All you gotta do is read
We'll
the
keep
playbook
some
and
of those.
implement in the playbook.
Yeah, some of the things were implemented, and I'm going
Less
to
than
tell you
5%.
I don't know what the percent is, but I'm
Okay,
going to
you know
tell you
what?
honestly.
I'm going to have Nick finish, but we're not here to talk about the master plan. We're talking about
we
the
got a lot to
police
do.
department.
So we should
We're talking
move on.
about keeping the police department and our services. So that's, we're somehow veering off the road here.
Well, it talks about not raising taxes, trying to create, it's all ties
Yeah.
in.
Yeah,
But just
and we're
in-
working on it. Go ahead, Nick, finish
Yeah,
up.
no, I think we need to move on. We're kind of starting to say the same things over and over.
Okay.
But as far as the master plan goes, yeah, there are good ideas. Some of the stuff from 2005 no longer applies. Some of the stuff was done. A lot of stuff was not. Let's face it, we are small. We don't have a planning department. We have limited resources. So we can't just take a master plan and put it into the effect the way that a larger municipality might be able to have a whole department that can take that master plan, research, do the planning, propose things. We don't have those kinds of resources, so things will happen a little bit slower. Right now, because of the situation with Indian Point closing, we're actually getting more state agencies and groups coming and saying, take advantage of our resources, and we might actually, by working with these other agencies, be able to start doing some of these things. But it's not easy. It's not, we don't have a lot of resources. We're a small town here.
Yeah, and thank you for mentioning that. While we have the New York State resources, we are going to use that to our best advantage. About the survey, the people who formed the survey on this board are not survey experts. So the survey went out just to get a feel of the residents' thoughts. That's all it was.
It was a bit of a rush job. We're going to do
And
the next one's going to be more
so-
specific and better designed.
And we're going to
Promise
hire
you
a
that.
firm to do that, right, Nick?
No, I'm just going to
No.
be more careful.
No, we're not. Okay. Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Yes, sir? And if this is the last person that, I don't want to cut anybody off. And like I said, you're welcome to come to these meetings, the New York State Task Force meeting, the Buchanan 2021. You're always welcome because then you'll be in the loop of what's going on. I'm sorry, thank you.
Hi, Mike Ricky, 223 First Street. I grew up in the area, not necessarily in the village. I graduated at Hendrick Hudson in '95. I was kind of known to be a little bit of a troublemaker back then.
Nah.
And to be honest with you, none of the officers are here now, so I could say it. They made sure that I didn't want to be in Buchanan. Not that I was a hardened criminal or really that bad, but
You were just a
the
challenging
Buchanan
child.
officers made sure that
Yeah.
trouble was not welcome in Buchanan. I can remember getting pulled over for doing 33 miles an hour in a 30-mile-an-hour zone.
Wow.
But I purchased my home here in 2009 with my wife, and I got the same welcome wagon from Mr. Buddy here that the other gentleman mentioned. I was outside doing some work on the house. We were making a lot of noise. We had an excavator, and he pulled up, and I said, "Oh, shit." And he got out, and he introduced himself.
Hey, how come I couldn't say that, but he can?
You're an elected official.
That's
Oh.
right. You've got to behave.
It really gave me, in my entire life, it gave me a whole, a different opinion of police officers in general. Shane as well, he made himself available to me. I live on a dead-end street. When I moved in, I'm right across the street from the park on First Street.
Oh, okay, yep. We know where you are.
The end of the street there was a dump when I moved in. There was garbage everywhere. I mentioned it to the officers. They said, call. You see somebody go back there, call. And when I tell you less than a minute, they show up at my house. It's not an exaggeration. You're not going to get that from anybody else at all. We appreciate you guys, definitely. And hopefully we can hang on to them.
Yeah, all right, thank you. Thank you very much. I'm sorry.
Everybody's here to talk about this memo.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't put you on the spot.
Yeah.
You did offer to speak on it.
Yeah, we're going to, I want to have a conversation with the chief about a few other things. But, Bob in the back, is he still there? Thank you, Bob, thank you for your comments, too. I'm sorry. We let you go over 5 minutes because we know you like to talk. But thank you, I appreciate that. Okay, thank you. Well, I'd like to do an executive session, if that's okay. Because I need to understand. Well, I thought it was Todd Horgan's letter that people were interested. There you go, Todd. Okay. Okay, All right, then shoot.
No, I said I would like to hear about the memo myself, man.
Okay.
I just think it's full disclosure, that's what we
Oh, you wanna
speak
do?
about, so I think we should probably.
Where did the memo come from? What? The executive session?
To address that.
All right, Brian, Chief, if you want to address it, please come up to the podium. Thank you.
Don't clap yet, I didn't say anything. After I believe it was the workshop, I had a conversation with the village administrator, and he told me that what came out of the workshop is that the board will not be hiring another officer to replace the retiring sergeant, and we discussed some other things. Then that was reduced to writing, and he gave me a memo that stated that that the village board had decided in executive session that they were not going to replace the slot for the retiring officer. I was not told any of this information was confidential, and I shared the information with my officers. I felt they had a right to know. What they did with that information, I cannot say. Before the meeting with Trustee Pasquale and Trustee Function, they had a meeting with me. They reiterated the same information. I got a text from the mayor that said that they will not be hiring. April 16th.
Okay, I'm going to check it.
Yes. In the conversation with Trustee Function and Trustee Pasquale, admittedly, I got a little heated because what I was told was that the village was entertaining the idea of not having Buchanan officers cover midnights, but rather the state police. And that's when the conversation got heated. I think it's a terrible idea. I explained that to them. I was also explained that I was not welcome at the meeting with the PBA because they wanted the PBA to speak freely. I wanted to hear what they had to say to my officers. I was not allowed to attend. But that's what the memo said. And the memo was from the village administrator. Admittedly, it was poor placement on my desk. Jeremy saw it. I'm not going to deny it was there. I'm not going to deny I didn't snatch it out of his hand. But it happened.
You know, we went through this once before, and I'm going to say this. When the officer that we're losing now through disability, who was a phenomenal, excellent, hardworking officer, and the board knows the overtime that we had to pay because we were missing an officer. So if you don't hire someone, we're going to be in the same position of paying overtime. So that's going to put us back into that situation. So in fairness to the board, to be able to have a complete discussion, because then we had another discussion at an executive session at the workshop too. So we, at that executive session, we went through some things, and you know what the overtime is when we're short an officer. And that's why, thank God, we were fortunate enough, you were fortunate enough to hire someone like Officer Loescher. And I know we had the conversation before we hired her that you said it would be difficult to hire somebody at that time, but we got a phenomenal officer. Yeah, so.
We had 4 applicants, that's it, 4.
Yeah.
2 of whom we didn't even consider.
Okay.
And so we had 2 viable applicants. And fortunately for the village, she turned out to be excellent.
Yes, she did.
And
so hopefully going forward, these new candidates that you have, we can, I know what your thoughts are on that because of the information out there on Entergy and the closure. People know. People on the outside know, but we'll see. Try your best.
But to be fair, you did walk into my office yesterday and you did tell me to start looking for a new officer.
And I did walk in yesterday because I wanted to get a hold of you last week, but you were out sick Thursday and Friday because we had the workshop, we had the executive session on Tuesday night. And so there. Yeah, we discussed it. And so good luck with our new candidate.
We're working on it.
Yeah, and then it'll be good because at least you'll have some people in the bench if we lose another officer.
And we can discuss you know, an
Yeah, I know you had
executive
some
session.
ideas, yeah.
And
I would
we'll
like to
talk-
hear
we'll
those
talk about that
ideas.
later
Sure.
on. Absolutely.
Absolutely, that would be great. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so, you guys have been so good. You sat for an hour and a half. That's good. And thank you all for coming. Thank you for all your comments. Everything was very well heard. And we're going to take a 5-minute break, and then we're going to go on to the rest of the meeting to do the village's business.
Hey, you could all stay for that too if you
Or
want.
you can stay too if you want. All right, thank you all for coming. We're going to start back under new business 5A, public hearing on a proposed local law amending Chapter 181 of the Code of the Village of Buchanan, establishing a tax on utility services. Nick, would you like to read that? The next two, A and B, please.
Sure. 1 second. Shifting here.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm not in the loop yet. Okay. Okay.
Motion to open the public
A
hearing?
motion to open the public hearing on the proposed local law amending Chapter 181.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay,
Can
so
I
the,
make a suggestion?
Sure.
That possibly since this meeting has gone so long, that instead of reading out each one, there would be just a summary?
we could do that.
I think we have to read the resolution, don't we?
No, you don't.
municipalities do that.
Most read them out,
No.
most summarize.
Because this is all available ahead of time.
Yeah.
Okay. So, but can the summarization be quicker than reading the thing? Okay. So, yeah, I know we're running out of memory on the camera, too. We went a little beyond time, but that's okay. We wanted the residents to speak also. Okay, so, Nick.
So you want me to summarize
Yeah,
it?
just summarize
Yes.
it in 5 minutes or less.
Well, I could read this in 1 minute, or I could summarize it in 5.
All
What do you
right,
want?
read it then.
All right. This is not required to read the whole thing. I'll skip what seems irrelevant. This is the Village of Buchanan resolution authorizing a local law amending Chapter 181 of the code, which is a tax on utility services by the Village of Buchanan. So I can, in summarizing it, let me say that I think there are 34 or 5 villages in Westchester. There may only be 1 or 2 others that do not impose this tax. It's a pretty standard tax that villages impose. Other than real property taxes, it's the only tax that villages by law can impose. It's a small tax. It's 1%. This 1% tax will show up on your utility bills, on gas and electric bills. For somebody with a $100 a month electric bill, you'll be paying it'll be $1 tax. For a $200 bill, $2 in tax. So it's fairly small, but the estimate from Con Edison is that it will yield $80,000 a year to the village, which is roughly about, in terms of our tax levy is roughly, Kevin, would you agree that's about 4% or 3%, 3.5%? Something like 3.5%. So it's every little bit, a case of every little bit helps. If the board approves it, it goes to the state, registered with the state. It would take, I guess it takes a few months before it'll show up. So will that suffice, since I'm not reading the whole resolution?
I think you actually took longer.
Yeah,
That's what I
that's why I said I could read it in 1 minute, or I could summarize it in 5. Whereas heretofore, therefore.
Is this the public hearing, or is this the vote on the?
This is a public hearing.
This is a public hearing.
Okay.
So, any comments from the board members?
Yes, I have comments.
Okay.
I'm totally opposed to this because it is unfair taxation. It is taxing people who heat their house with natural gas more than the other residents. And every tax should be equal across the board to everybody. I know the board feels differently, and I accept that, but I just wanted to voice my opposition to this tax.
Okay, so your opposition is that people who use oil will not be taxed on this, so.
That's correct.
All right, and I think we're 1 or 2 municipalities in all of Westchester County and other communities that, as Nick said, do not have this law, so.
Well, I agree with Rich. It's not ideal in that way, but given the current financial situation, I think we need to take advantage of that 80. thousand a year in income.
Okay.
Though I understand the point.
But this will be added onto an electric bill, though, correct?
Correct.
Automatically,
Okay.
yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, any other comments from the board?
Well, I mean, Rich has brought up a point that I was unfamiliar with. And,
Well, we just, yeah, okay.
on that aspect of it, and I kind of concur with him that, you know, if you have oil heat, you're not subject to this, and if you do, you're subject to it. So it's unfair.
Right, but there's taxes on your oil bill too, other taxes, right? When you get an oil bill, you're paying taxes on your oil, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't.
Pay taxes on all the utilities, yeah.
No, I
Taxes on your
Cell
phone.
realize that, but this is
Yeah.
an added burden that specifically goes to those users as opposed to other users that are, you're saying, that are already taxed.
Yeah.
But, yeah,
So, Nick, what were you saying the dollar amount would be per resident?
It's 80,000 a year. I think it's a very.
No, per resident. Like, what do you, like, on
Oh,
an average
okay.
bill?
So I have a two-family house, so my electric bill might be higher than other people. I think it's typically, not counting air conditioning season, when it's about $300 a month. A regular bill would be $2 to $2.30. So for me, it's $2.30 a month. I think it's a very small amount to each person, but it's 80,000 is not to be sneezed at in our current budget situation.
Any other comments?
No?
Any comments from the floor?
Eileen Absinger, 138 Tate Avenue. I concur with Richie and Wayne. I am not in favor of this tax. We are an anomaly village. Let's stay that way. We don't need to join the rest of the group. We don't even know what's going to happen with Entergy. What happens when Entergy closes in 2020 with that 80,000? Are they contributing to this, or are they not contributing? Who is contributing? Is it everybody?
Anybody that gets a bill from Con Edison.
So Entergy gets a bill from Con Edison for all that electricity. Where does that 80,000 go when they close up?
They're still going to be a
what does
user
that
of
drop?
electricity.
Yeah, but what does
They
it
still will
drop
be.
to? Teresa, you know it's going to drop.
Oh, yeah. Well, they're
Is
not
it
going to
gonna
be
drop?
using, because
That's
right
right.
now they buy electricity also. They produce electricity, but
Right,
they
but
also
they
buy
buy it.
electricity from Con
So
Edison.
is that going to
The
drop
estimate on this,
considerably?
the estimate for this tax to the village, based on 2009 billing, Con Edison had given me a figure of 40,000 a year. Since 2009, the 80,000 estimate is based on all of their electric bills in Buchanan in 2017. In the course of that 8 years, it doubled. I suspect even if Entergy is 10 or 20%, that the overtime increases will probably still keep it around 80,000. I don't have any hard figures, but that is what I would project.
That may be well and fine, but I'd like a little more concreteness about what happens when Entergy closes in 2 years.
Yeah,
And
Con
where
Ed
that
gave me
goes to, Nick, I think that's only fair to know.
Right. Well, Con Edison was able to give us a total figure for the village. I don't think they would give us any individual customers' information.
I agree with that. But there's got to be a way of figuring out something in regards to how much, what percentage of that 80,000 is Entergy not going to be paying once they start closing down. Because once you put this in, it stays in.
I think Entergy is going to be a very small piece of it because their consumption at that point is going to be minimal because you know that there's still security guards that will still be on site. So, but it's not going to be as they were producing electricity and using their backup systems for
And
different.
you're not going to have anybody in that building.
Which building?
The buildings that, they're going to start to...
So there's going to be a drop in their usage, but there's still going to be quite a bit of security on site. And there's still going to be
I don't think it's going
people.
to make that much difference, Teresa. They're still going to
Yeah.
drop in that percentage.
Well,
And I
yeah.
do agree
Well, yeah,
with
they're
you.
not operational at that point.
Right,
So,
I
yeah.
do
And they
agree.
don't need it for their backup systems,
Right, so
the
how much
energy.
are we actually giving? And as Richie said, you've got oil versus gas.
well, which I think is the larger crux of the problem, and
What's the larger crux of the problem? I'm not
is
understanding.
that it's not equally shared by all residents across the board.
Well, it's not equally shared throughout Westchester County.
Yeah, well, as
It's
Eileen
not
says,
equally
do
shared
we
all
buy
over.
into, because, you know, everybody else is doing it, we should be doing it too.
Well, then I want this board to figure out how we're going to get another $80,000 from somewhere, some type of income.
Well, I
So
mean, we'll put
it's
it
on
out
the
to a
board.
vote.
It's on the board. So, yeah, we have a lot of things that we need to do.
Why don't we take a vote?
Okay, well, first, yes, John.
John Mattis, Tate Avenue. How much of the 80,000 is electric and how much is natural gas?
It's about, I don't have the, it's about
Round-
75% of it is electric.
Then why not, to be fair, just do it on the electric?
It's a 1% gross utility tax, so we can't.
You can't split it out?
We can't pick and choose which bill it goes on.
But if Con Ed uses electricity, they don't just generate it, use it themselves. They have to pump it out to the grid and pay for it. And that's the point Eileen was making. They're a big user of electricity. Because they can't.
Pump it out to
It
the
goes out to
grid.
Con Ed,
It
to the
goes
grid,
out to
and they
Con
pay for
Ed.
it to come back in.
And then they pay Con Ed for whatever their usage is coming
Exactly.
back because
So they
they
will be
need
paying that
lights.
tax.
Yeah, so
And-
they
and
don't
her
produce their own
question is,
electricity.
Are they using 10% of the village electricity? That you'll be, is it 50%? Her
All right, you
concern
know
is
what?
that it might drop a lot.
This is a public hearing,
Yeah.
so we
No,
hear
I'm
your
just asking the
comments.
questions.
So we're going to get that information. We're not going to vote on that tonight.
Oh,
I'm going to make a motion to keep this public hearing open, and we'll revisit it again in June. How's that sound? This way we'll have more information.
Well, I don't know that we're going to be able to get the individual billing information.
All right, well,
If you want to
we'll
hold it
see.
off a
Well,
month.
not the individual billing information, but, you know, the
That-
point
that's
was
what it
made.
requires, to know what
A
entities
point was made
electric
about
bills are.
Entergy.
Do we take a vote on the holdover or?
Because we have a public hearing open.
Right.
Okay, I make a motion to adjourn to the next meeting?
So moved.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Opposed.
Okay. So, we're not dealing with Resolution B. Resolution C and D, which one, I'm just with this.
I'm
this
opposed
whole
to
thing.
adjourning the meeting and
No,
would.
Yeah,
he's,
Nick is the only one opposed to adjourning the
Okay.
meeting. He wanted to vote on that this evening.
We're during the public hearing.
Yeah, that's all. If we can find more information. If not, the public hearing will still, people will be able to still speak. Board members will still be able to speak. So AB,
And the reason I'm opposed is because whether Con Edison whether Entergy is 5% of the electric bill or 50%, I still think we should enact it. And, you know,
Okay,
it's
'cause
not a
we had
perfect
talked
law,
about
but
this.
it's something I think we need to do.
we had talked about this law a couple years ago also, and then that got tabled.
No, we talked about,
and-
it was 2011, and there'd be about $420,000 additional dollars in our coffers right now if we had enacted it then.
All right, thank you. Okay, so, under the circumstances with the budget, Kevin, if you want to talk, we're going to go to E, if you want to have a conversation about that, so I can see where the board stands with the budget. Today, we have to pass the budget. Today is the last day to pass our budget for the 2018-2019 year. We've had a public hearing, we've discussed it, and Kevin, if you'd like to add anything on?
As we wrapped up the public hearing on the budget, we were at 9.94%. During the budget process, we left money in the budget to take down the White Street house, which, as we all know, has already happened. So that money doesn't need to be taken. So as we discussed, I think putting half of it in the contingency and half back into the paving budget where it originally came from would be the most logical options. But that's, again, up to the board here to decide, because that money originally came from paving. So we had discussed maybe putting half of it in the contingency and half back into the paving budget.
And what are the numbers on that?
That was $100,000 that we budgeted, so 50 and 50.
Okay.
Moving forward, we had discussed possibly putting in revenue for the gross utility tax. That seems to have been held up for
We're
the
in
time.
we're in
We're in a holding period for that.
Holding.
I don't think it's safe to assume that income.
Right, so then
We
I
don't know if
would
it's
have
gonna
to
get
take
approved.
out the
Right.
30,000, but I believe we could also increase the revenue for the insurance recoveries from our officer that's been out, probably that same amount. That would then lower the tax, the percentage increase, to 8.36, and it would be a tax cap compliant budget. So if the board was in favor of those changes, I would make them, and we would vote on the final budget at 8.36% and a new tax rate of $284.29.
Okay.
So that's my summary. I mean, we talked previously in the public hearing on the budget, and those are the only changes that I wanted to bring to the board's attention, since one of them was the White Street house already coming down, which we had budgeted for.
Okay.
And then you wouldn't override it.
And then the next one, we wouldn't have to
that
override the
makes all the difference.
property tax
Yeah.
cap.
Yep.
But that's,
Okay.
again, a board decision.
So does the board understand Kevin's thoughts on the budget?
Yes, I
Okay.
do.
And
So
is,
we're still within the tax cap, even if you remove the gross utility tax
Because we're
revenue?
gonna- well, I was going to say we remove it, but we would maybe move it to insurance recovery, because we do probably are due for an insurance recovery on our worker from the workers' comp.
workers' comp.
Okay.
So
And with this
I think we're
budget,
safe putting it in either way.
what were we putting into, were we just putting 25,000 into the
25,000
the tax stabilization fund?
That is correct.
Yeah.
But there's more money going into the contingency right now also.
Yes.
Right.
So which is, frees us up instead of targeting it and not being able to use it if there's an emergency.
Well, for me, I think that, I understand a lot of work went into the budget, and it's not going to be very easy, going forward, but a couple of things are making me hesitant to vote in favor of this budget, and one of them has to do with that tax stabilization fund. I understandably, nobody on this board wants to raise taxes. It's like, it's like a pain in the gut when you think of doing it. We'd all like to avoid it. But I'm thinking that any of those things that are going to happen in a few years that might provide revenue, be it business development, be it, money that comes out of the something that comes out of the decommissioning plan, or changes in the tax status of the waste storage. A lot of these things are speculative, and I'm thinking there's going to be a gap, even if there is development down the road or things that bring in additional money, and that, while we're trying to transition, I think we're going to have some periods where we're going to be forced to raise taxes more than we want to, and it's going to feel like a punch to the gut. But so I think at least in this budget, we need to be putting that $100,000 a year into the tax stabilization fund to help offset the larger increases that are going to be coming in a few years, whether it's a matter of taking those increases from 50% to 30 or 40%, or whether it's a higher number, whatever it is. So I really feel this budget is missing that, and it's not fully taken into account a 5-year perspective, which is something that's important to me. So, though there's a lot of good stuff in the budget, I would have to vote against it at this point.
Okay, so you're saying right now we're at 8.36. If we add 100,000, we're looking at close to 5% more, so we'd be looking at a 13%.
Well, we'd have 25 already, so it would be 75 more, which is what, 3% more?
Probably,
Right.
in this budget, I think 19,000 was about 1%, so a little bit more
So,
than 3%.
so maybe
So
somewhere between 3 and 4.
11.5% roughly, okay.
So Nick, what you basically want to do is add 75,000.
I want to beef up that tax stabilization fund with the anticipation that we're going to need to use that in about 3 years. Just to kind of, it's not going to solve the problem, but it's going to maybe ease the shock a little bit.
Yeah, 2020 would probably be the first time you would use this tax stabilization fund, I believe, and I will get confirmation from the state. The cessation fund, because we're losing 30% at that point in 2021, that cessation fund should kick in for 8 years.
Would that
which
cover the
will-
full 30%?
That will, 2021 is when the 30%, we would definitely, with both plants being closed, would be the 30%.
But do we know that the cessation fund would cover that full 30%?
Cessation fund was funded this year. The first funding was this year of $24 million, and it's specifically for the Indian Point closure.
Right, but that's
not
for various
everything. There
taxing
needs to be
districts.
more. There needs to be more.
Right,
Yes.
and so,
That's
so
not it,
maybe
though.
that cessation fund is going to cover half of the tax revenue we're losing. Maybe the tax stabilization fund will cover, another 5%, whatever it is. I think that would be a prudent thing. I'm not looking to, we're not going to just raise taxes to pad the bank accounts, but that's a legitimate dedicated fund that can only be used to offset future tax increases, and my feeling is it should be done.
How's the rest of the board feel about doing a tax adding 75,000 and adding another 3% into this budget?
I'd like to call a vote.
Well, my comment would be to split the difference and maybe put in 35,000.
Hold on, I'm confused.
We're already budgeted 25. I'm asking that we budget 100. And we could take a vote.
What we're talking about, so before we can vote for the budget, I want to understand where the board is coming from with the budget. Are they going to meet the tax cap at an 8.36, or are they going to go over the tax cap and do a 12% increase?
I'm happy with the budget as is.
So that extra 3% would be on top of 9.94%,
On top of 8.36.
on top of 8.36.
So
And
you're
I'm
looking
saying-
at 11 and a half.
11 and a half.
And I'm saying, let's split the difference and go with.
Can I just interrupt? We had a budget hearing and you closed the budget hearing.
Yes,
And
you
were
are
at
correct.
9.9. We have not opened it. And I
Should
believe the
reopen it.
time
Would you like me to
period is-
reopen it, or it's too late?
Isn't it too late?
We can still continue it. I mean, we have to have the budget adopted by May 1st, otherwise the tentative
It has to
budget-
happen tonight. It
So
has
it's
to
today,
happen.
yeah.
So then
Today
you
is
should at
it.
least reopen the hearing if you're going to
Okay.
do this.
All right,
If
on
you're gonna go
motion-
higher, if you're
I'm
gonna
sorry.
go lower, which Kevin was suggesting to keep you under the cap, then, you've already.
We're just trying to resolve this.
If
It's,
you're going to
you
11
know,
and 12, you should probably open the
Open the
budget
budget
hearing again.
Well, the consensus is Nick wants to add the 75,000, which is going to take it up.
Correct.
So then you should open the budget hearing, make a motion to open the hearing and continue it and then close it. and-
okay.
And I want to split the difference, and Rich wants to keep it.
On a motion to open the public hearing for the budget for the 2018-2019 fiscal year.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, now it is open. Thank you very much. So, okay, Nick has spoken. Cheech?
I like the budget just the way it is.
Okay, so you're looking to keep the tax cap. Rich, same?
I want it as is.
Okay, Dwayne, if we split the difference, you're adding another percentage and a half, maybe? So 8.36, 9.36, that'll bring you up to 10.
Which is was the original numbers
Right, 9.94.
that we had.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Yeah,
Right, you brought it down.
I brought it down to
minus.
8.36.
Yes.
And that's where you want to potentially talk about adding more to.
From the
Or do we want to add it from the 9.94, just so I know where we're starting?
Well, the starting point was 8.36.
Okay.
And then Nick wanted to add in
All right.
another $75,000, which would bring the budget up more.
Okay, so we're not looking at 9.94 right now, we're looking at 8.36.
Correct.
Which will make
okay.
the tax cap. If
Yeah, that's-
we do that, that will do the tax cap.
I like that.
You don't have to override it.
Look, I'm not holding the budget hostage.
No,
Just take a
you
vote
can't.
on the current resolution,
it's
and it's okay.
And we can't hold it hostage.
And I'm just trying to compromise on trying to give
Right.
you a little bit,
Right.
a little bit more.
I
added.
understand, and you've usually taken a middle road on that, when I bring this issue up, and I appreciate that. But, it seems to me if we have a resolution as is, if we're not going to fund that to a greater extent, we might as well just be expedient here and just make a move on this budget.
Okay.
I mean,
Any other comments on the budget? Are we ready to vote?
You have to close.
Okay, on a motion to
Okay.
close the public hearing for the budget.
So moved.
All in, second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
opposed?
Motion.
Okay, so that was a motion to close the public hearing. So now we are going to do the resolution, number E. Rich, would you like to read that? Adopting the 2018-19 Village of Buchanan budget.
Oops, sorry.
Oh, my gosh, the lights just blinked.
Adopting the budget.
Here, honey.
The original.
Yeah, I got it.
Got it?
Whereas the tentative budget has been prepared to distribute to the village board and members of the public for review. Whereas the village, having held the necessary public hearing on April 10th, 2018, continued on May 1st, 2018. Whereas the village board has reviewed and discussed the original tentative budget as submitted to them. And whereas the village board wishes to place $250,000 into a subcontract of capital reserve fund for the purpose of roadway improvements. And whereas the village board also wishes to create a tax stabilization fund as set forth in the General Municipal Law 6E and fund said account with $25,000 for the purpose of lessening future large tax increases. And whereas the public comment is now being considered by the mayor and board of trustees with respect to the budget, now be it therefore resolved that 2/18/2/19 budget be and hereby is adopted as amended with all the attachments that are on file with it in the village clerk's office.
All right, thank you, Rich. Okay, so, all in favor?
No, on the motion.
Oh, on a motion, I'm sorry. It is, it's been a long meeting.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And
All-
I'm opposed.
all
I'm sorry,
opposed?
the last vote was just to close the public hearing. I was not opposed to that. My opposition is to the budget, not to closing the public
I
hearing.
know, I was looking, I was
If
like,
you
you're
could amend that.
opposing the closing of that, but that's okay, that's okay. It's late, it's been a long meeting, and
We have
so.
4 yeses and a no? Is that how that
Correct.
works? Just now?
Is that what?
Yes,
Yes.
I'm yes.
Dwayne, did you vote?
I'm gonna know.
Yeah, okay, 2 noes, 3 yeses.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, moving right along, we have Resolution F. Trustee Pasquale, would you read that for us?
Okay.
Scheduling a public hearing on proposed local law amending Chapter 211 of the Code of the Village of Buchanan.
All right.
It's a short read,
I-
so-
I get this one, okay. All right. Whereas the Village of Buchanan resolution scheduling a public hearing on a proposed local law amending Chapter 211 of the Code of the Village of Buchanan. Whereas a local law has been drafted and introduced which would adopt the local law amending Chapter 211-19 of the Code of the Village of Buchanan, and whereas the local law has been received and reviewed by the Board of Trustees, which has recommended the adoption of same, and whereas it is the desire of the board to conduct a public hearing on the enactment of the proposed local law. Now be it therefore resolved that the village board will conduct a public hearing at the Village Municipal Building on June 5th, 2018 at 7:30 p.m. for the purpose of taking public comment on and giving due consideration to the enactment of local law amending Chapter 211-19 entitled Accessory Structures and Uses of the Code of the Village of Buchanan. And be it further resolved that a copy of said local law is available at the village clerk's office for public inspection during regular business hours. And be it further resolved that the village clerk be and hereby is authorized and directed to publish notice of said public hearing in the official newspaper.
All right, thank you. What this is we've really gone through this, and this has been, we've, I guess, really updated this, this section 211-19, which is accessory structures and uses to the Code of the Village of Buchanan. So there's some updates that have gone in here, and.
Excuse me,
Yes,
there
ma'am.
are, and you don't have them yet, because I changed the one thing in paragraph 2.
Oh,
Regarding
okay.
wrapping.
Okay.
I mean, they've been sent to Kevin, but it was after you
packet
guys
was
got the
already
packets.
out.
So
Oh.
I'll get up to you by tomorrow. But
Okay.
I just want to put on the record that the only thing that's changed is you wanted, you know, language about no wrapping of the vehicle, and that you could have a license, your name, your address, your license, your phone number. So that's what's in the new one.
So should we table this, or should we still?
Well, what we're doing is
No,
setting
we
up
can
the
just-
public
Okay.
hearing.
Yeah,
Public
you're just
hearing.
scheduling a public hearing,
Okay.
but technically you're supposed to have the draft, you do, but it's in
Okay.
your inbox.
All right, I
Did
understand.
we skip over
Just
the,
clarifying.
override the property tax?
Well,
We don't need, we didn't.
is there
need
any precautionary reason to do that? The budget's voted on, so we don't need to do the
No, we don't
tax
need to
cap.
do
No,
that. Right.
we didn't,
So that's eliminated then.
because we met the, we didn't have to
Okay.
override the
All right.
property tax cap. That's why we skipped
Okay,
through that.
good enough.
Okay, so we're scheduling a public hearing on a motion.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
So we will do that next month, open up a public hearing. Resolution approving a vehicle use policy for the Village of Buchanan. Dwayne, do you want to read that?
Yeah.
It's a very short.
Right. Village of Buchanan resolution approving a vehicle use policy. Whereas the village board of trustees believes that the establishment of a village use policy is in the best interest of the village of Buchanan, and whereas it is desired of the village board of trustees that a guideline related to the use of village vehicles be contained in one document, and whereas the village board of trustees is desirous of adopting a formal vehicle use policy, a copy which is attached in and available in the office of the clerk, and whereas the board of trustees have reviewed the proposed village use policy and has recommended approval. Now therefore be it resolved that the Village of Buchanan Board of Trustees does hereby adopt the village use policy, which is intended to apply to all village vehicles.
Okay, good, thank you. So this basically is the policy for any employee or anyone who uses any of our vehicles. There's a list of things that are required for them to use this, to use our vehicles. And Kevin, would you like to add anything on to that?
No, I mean, it's just a general use policy. We talked about it in the workshop, some general rules and regulations for everybody. I think eventually we should have it as part of the village handbook.
Absolutely.
But at this time, we'll get it signed by all the people who drive a village vehicle.
All right, yeah, no, this is just something so people realize the do's and don'ts of using village equipment. It's pretty standard for a lot of municipalities, too.
On a motion?
On a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, none opposed. Okay, Resolution 8. Rich, if you could read that, awarding the water meter replacement
Whereas the
contract?
Village Board of Trustees has previously authorized the advertising for proposals to replace water meters throughout the Village of Buchanan, and whereas said request for proposal was properly advertised and bids were received and publicly read aloud on March 29, 2018 at 2 p.m., and whereas the following bids were received for the replacement of water meters throughout the village: East National Water, $418,141. Mass Installation, Inc., $736,586. National Metering Service, $388,111. Saks Plumbing and Heating, bid withdrawn. Whereas said bids have been reviewed by the village administrator and engineer, and the village board and the village engineer has determined the lowest possible bidder and received the low bidder's work references. Now therefore be it resolved that the bid is timely and awarded to National Metering Services of Kearney, New Jersey for $388,111, and subject to the review and approval of the contract and the associated bonds and insurance by the village engineer and village attorney.
Okay, we have this money in our water fund, and you can see there's quite a spread on the numbers. I mean, from 388 to 736 with the bidding process. And when, Kevin, when do you think this would?
I spoke with the engineer. Obviously, we'll have to get contracts approved. It depends on how long that takes, but we thought reasonably to have this completed by the end of the summer.
Really?
Company said that they probably could get it done in 1 to 2 months. It just
wow.
depends on when they can get started. In the community where I live, they did something like this. They send out like a flyer to everybody to make an appointment. Hopefully that everybody follows through, makes the appointments. That'll make the process go quicker as well. So
People have to be home for them to do this?
yes, somebody had to be home when I did it. I assume it would be the same here.
They can't shut the water off at the street and then change the meter? It has to be homeowner involvement?
Yeah, because they have to get into your house to get access to the water meter.
Yeah. To change a water meter, you have
It's
to.
in.
If it's in the house, yeah, if it's in the house.
My meter is outside.
So you don't have to be home.
That's the thing that's stuck to the side of the wall outside, right?
That's the remote.
The numbers?
That's the remote,
Yeah.
but the
And there's-
meter's in the house.
Yeah.
Oh.
Oh,
Where your
so
water
they're actually
comes in the
attached to the
house,
water
the
pipe?
feed.
That's just so they can read it
Inside.
outside.
That's so they can read it outside. The actual meter.
Oh, wait, look at that, I didn't know that.
So you have to be home.
Yes.
I didn't know that.
Okay.
I thought it was just outside.
And we'll be replacing 700 water meters throughout the village's distribution system. Okay.
700? That's not even one per house,
Yeah, it says 700.
right? Aren't there 800?
Oh, he says over 700.
Okay, over,
Oh.
sorry.
750 approximately.
Oh, over, okay.
Just interested to, why was the bid withdrawn of the other company?
They had a low bid, it was $113,000. They didn't include the cost of providing the meter, so I guess it was an error on their part.
Oh, okay.
Well, we might need the meters to do a meter
Yeah, you
replacement.
would think.
Okay,
So
on a
that was the
motion?
reason.
So
Okay,
moved.
thank you.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Nick, if you could do the I, employment
Sure.
of seasonal employees, please.
Sure, do you want me to read it in 1 minute or summarize it in 5?
You can summarize it.
Read it in one, please.
Whereas during the spring-summer season, the village will employ individuals on a seasonal basis to assist at the highway department to fill in for employees taking their spring and summer vacations, and whereas it is the desire of the village board to hire the following individual for a period of time, beginning on May 21st, 2018, and concluding on August 31st, 2018, now be it therefore resolved that the following individuals will be and hereby are appointed, subject to the village hiring policies, as a seasonal employee to be paid at the hourly rate set forth next to their name. Should I read the names?
Sure, absolutely.
Michael Eichler, $11 an hour for the Highway Department. Zachary Giervalo, $11 an hour for the Highway Department. Be it further resolved that the village administrator be and hereby is authorized to place the aforementioned individuals on the village payroll for the summer season and to pay the salaries as set forth above.
Okay, thank you. We have 2 new employees for this summer. I'm seeing different names here, so, okay, good. This is something we do every season. You know, the summer comes, we hire employees to help with all the grass cutting and everything that goes on. On a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Cheech, could you please read the next one?
That would be on the unpaid water charges?
Yes, please, number J.
Village of Buchanan resolution authorizing unpaid water charges to be included in the village tax bill. Whereas the village treasurer has certified that certain water charges remain unpaid by certain village residents as of the date hereof, and that said amounts have been duly billed to said residents but remain unpaid and are now overdue. And whereas the village treasurer has prepared a list of identifying said residents by name, account number, tax map, and street address, and showing the total amount outstanding for each water account, and that said list is attached here to as Schedule A. And whereas Village Law Section 11-1118 authorizes and directs that the aforesaid unpaid water charges be included in the village tax bill for said residents, and that said charges shall become a lien against the real property of said residents. Now be it therefore resolved that the village treasurer be and hereby is authorized and directed to include and incorporate all amounts for unpaid water charges into the 2017 village tax bills for each resident identified herein, and that said unpaid water charges shall be subject to the collection along with the 2018 village tax.
Okay, thank you.
Question.
Sure.
And we have all this.
Is there, on a carryover from one year to another, do we charge a penalty on that?
There's a penalty on the water bills, yeah.
Okay.
For late payment.
All right.
And when the bill isn't paid by, what is it? Today was the day, May 1st, so then that automatically goes on their tax bill, which is due the end of June.
Right, okay.
So it will be in the tax
This is the
as of June
April and
1st.
October billings of 2017.
Okay, all right.
We've done this in previous years,
Yes,
and
this
it
is
gets
something we
added
do.
to the tax bill, and has there been any problem collecting it once it's added to the tax bill?
You know, so if they're not going to pay their taxes, they're not going to pay their taxes, we're not going to get it. But some people don't pay their water bills, but then end up paying it in their taxes.
Right.
Sometimes it's an oversight, too, you know.
Absolutely.
Probably
Oh, yeah.
people forget.
It happens. Okay. On a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, I'm going to read the next 3. 2 of them are authorizing use of a facility. Whereas the village trustees, there's a request for the pavilion on May 12, 2018 by Karen Park on behalf of the Beautification Committee for a craft vendor fair, at which time no alcoholic beverages will be available. And whereas the village trustees of Buchanan have also received a request for waiver of the usual fee for the use of same, now therefore it be resolved that requests are hereby approved subject to the applicants complying with all village requirements for this facility. So what I'd like to mention on this, because it's an organization, that this is a fundraiser for them, We always waive the fee for them. These are the people that work very hard in the village for us and do all our planters, and they raise funds, and they pay for the plants and the planters without asking the village for money. So we definitely thank the Beautification Committee. They do a lot of great work here in the village. So we support them when they do their fundraisers, and I'd like to ask everyone to please come out to support them. They do a great job. So, after I said that, on a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the next village request is for the Village Pavilion on June 21st by Linda Puglisi on behalf of the Town of Cortland veterans, at which no time alcoholic beverages will be available. Whereas the village trustee of the Village Buchanan have also received a request for the waiver of the usual fee for the use of the same. Now be it therefore resolved that the requests are hereby approved, subject to the applicants complying with all requirements for the use of the facility. And I do see both of them have their insurance attached here. And this is something we do every year. We waive the fee on this because this is for our area veterans, and this is sponsored by the town of Cortland, and it will be at the pavilion on June 21st. On a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And the last one is, whereas a position of the Zoning Board of Appeals has been vacated, and the village board is desirous of appointing a Zoning Board of Appeals member to fill said position, and whereas it is important to the Village of Buchanan to have a full board to perform the business of the Zoning Board of Appeals, now therefore it be resolved that Mary Function of 179 Kings Ferry Road, Buchanan, New York, 10511, be and is hereby appointed to the Zoning Board of Appeals effective May 1st, 2018, and let me say, Mary is a very conscientious person. When we had the vacancy, which started with Mike Cherico's passing, we had a vacancy. We had asked several people in the village. It was mentioned that the position was open. No one came forward to do this job for the village, and, Mary noticed meeting after meeting, no one was stepping up. So I thank Mary Function for stepping up to join the zoning board, and I'm sure she'll be an asset because she will definitely do the training and will be a great participant. On a motion?
So moved. You don't have to vote. You don't have to. You don't have to vote.
Well,
It's your
it's an
appointment.
appointment.
Oh, it's a mayor's
Okay.
appointment.
Yeah.
And I appoint Mary Function. But I know we would have gotten approval.
It's nice to be queen.
Yes, yeah, well, sometimes. Sometimes it's hot sitting in the heat seat here. Okay, so, here we go. Information from officers and departments. The Justice Court report for February through March has been received and filed. We have that information, and let me just quickly read that to you. Let's see, for March 2018, there's an amount of $300. For also March 6th, $4,164. And March again, 2018, $2,390. And then one other amount, $1,089. So I'd just like the residents to know, what's going on in the court, what fees are being collected. Planning Board minutes, February 2018, received and filed. Have those in there. Zoning Board minutes, February 2018, received and filed. And the last report is Fire Inspector's report, February to March 2018. 2018, so that's been received and filed. And is there any questions or any comments on any of the reports?
Nope. No.
Okay. Nope. All right, our attorney Stephanie Porteous, who is still awake.
Everything I have for you is for executive session.
Okay, yes, we will be going into executive session. Administrator's report. Kevin, do you have any
I
updates
just
for
have a
us?
couple of things. As we all know, White Street House came down, was removed. And the other thing I have is the Bannon Avenue Pit project is underway. It'll take
Okay.
approximately 2 months to get the project completed.
Okay,
It's
yeah, we've
underway.
seen the truck there and
Yep.
the plates on the road. And I want to thank you and Stephanie for all your hard work. I don't think people understand. I think they were just thinking that we weren't wanting to do it or we weren't doing it. But a lot of hard work went into taking that house down on White Street. There was a lot of legality involved in it, and also our building inspector who followed through with that. It was not an easy takedown. There was asbestos. We had to have the Department of Labor there. We also had to have a water truck there that hosed down the building because there was asbestos in it. So it was a lengthy process. Thank you, everyone, for being so patient, but it was not an easy takedown, and there was a huge legal issue, but we finally, thank God, got it done.
And I'd like to thank the fire department for their input in the takedown. No, I'm not the takedown, in the cleanup, of the White Street property.
Did they clean it up?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so I guess it's my turn. So yesterday, Trustee Pasquale and I met with the Federal Economic Development Agency. We had a meeting set up for us through Congresswoman Nita Lowey, who is one of the many elected officials who have been supportive of us. Also, she's co-sponsored the Stranded Act. But we had a very interesting meeting. We went around the village and showed them sites that have potential economic development, and we can get grants through that for 2 years before the plant closure and 2 years after. So there's a 4-year period of time that we might be able to get some money, even if it's for planning. So it was a good meeting, and we continue to work on ways to mitigate the loss of Entergy. Also, once again, just a reminder for the Buchanan Beautification Committee, May 12th at the Pavilion. And finally, 10 to 4, Rich will be there. Good. Buy your plants for Mom's Day. I always buy, well, I can't, in case Mom sees this, she can't know what she's getting. But anyhow, so some happy news, finally. It's been a tough meeting. But I'd like to announce that Buchanan is having a 90th birthday party, and we are having a picnic on Saturday, June 16th. It is free to all Buchanan residents. If you are not a resident, there is a fee of $20, which will cover the cost of the food. So the food is hot dogs, hamburgers, sausage and peppers, all kinds of salads, soda, water. We will have games. We will have raffles. We will have a dunking booth, I think, still, right, ladies? Cindy and I'd like to really, I'm telling you, Cindy and Sharon in the office have been phenomenal. They've really set a lot of this up, and also Colleen has done a lot. So it's a small committee, but it's a mighty committee. And what other things? We have a whole bunch of things, but the way to get the tickets is you have to come into Village Hall. You will get a ticket. The ticket will allow you to come in, and the top of the ticket with your name filled out will be used for the raffles. The other portion of the ticket, as you're leaving, will be used to get a souvenir, which is a mug. And so that's what we're doing. And then on June 19th is the official day. It's a Tuesday of our anniversary, and the Village Hall will be open from 12 to 8 that day with coffee and cake. So anyone that would like to come into the Village Hall, it will be open. So I thank Sharon Murphy and Cindy Kempner, and also Colleen Murphy, for their support. And we've got a lot of work done, and we're going to have a fun day. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Teresa, the $20 for non-residents would be payable at the gate?
No, we have to have a head count. So if it's a non-resident, we can't tell them we have 300 people and then another 100 people come in.
So I imagine that's mostly for residents that have friends that are non-residents. So if you're bringing a friend that's not a non-resident, they have to come to the Village Hall to get a ticket also ahead of time?
Everyone has to have a ticket.
Just to clarify.
So I was fortunate to get a very good grant from Entergy, so that's why it's free to the residents. So happy birthday, Buchanan.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Nick, how would you like to go next?
Sure, thank you. Okay. A few things. We have now ordered the benches and the plaque which will be going up front. The plaque is, so we'll have this, the front of the village property will be a little bit more officially made into a park. There'll be a sign, Village Hall Park, with the history of the school building, and some benches that'll get placed, some improvements. So those things are ordered. That should happen soon, sometime over the course of the next couple of months. I attended with Teresa and Rich and Trustee Pasquale. Dwayne, I think, came also. We were all there, weren't we? The DL English presentation. Now, DL English was a consultant hired by the state to assess the properties around Indian Point that are owned by Entergy and the possible reuse. You know, they made some different suggestions ranging from industrial uses to windmills to, on the undeveloped, currently wooded parcel, the possibility of mixed use. Nothing is going to happen too quickly because it's all owned by Entergy. Entergy will not be, you know, we might be able to prod them a little bit here and there, but for the most part, they're going to need to put their decommissioning plan together in a few years before things happen. So whatever does happen at these sites, it'll be some time before their tax, there's new tax revenue coming in from them. I kind of brought up the proposal, I think something we need to look at, which is if they go with some kind of development there in the wooded parcel that borders Lens Cove Park, we might need some kind of buffer, you know, so there's a lot to look at there, but in terms of, you know, people talk about economic development and business development in the village, and this report gave some information, but it really left a lot of things open without any clear answers because there are so many variables that are out of our control. I just want to talk briefly also about property maintenance. You know, we keep talking about keeping this village going, keeping services going, and all our financial situations. I do not want us to lose sight of quality of life issues. And to me, things like a little village park is a quality of life issue. I think property maintenance is a quality of life issue. And I'm driving around the village, and I've jotted down a few addresses, and you know, if the neighbors and residents don't complain, I will. There are a few, you know, I'm glad we got rid of the White Street property, but there's other things that need to be addressed. I will relay that back to the administrator and building inspector. You know, if you're, I've said this before, you know, if you see, you know, if you're looking at a property and it's run down and you're saying, this is bringing down the value of my property, that's probably something you might want to contact somebody at the village hall for. Anything to do with property maintenance often goes nowhere if nobody complains. And I've often put myself out there, if somebody wants to complain without complaining, they can come to me, contact me through the village hall. I can look at it. If there's a complaint necessary, I'll make the complaint for you so you don't have to. And a last thing is the, you know, people keep talking about the real estate panic in Buchanan. And, you know, I think people are saying things that might suggest that Buchanan and people are going to start dumping their houses here, but that couldn't be anything any further than from the truth. This is Westchester Magazine from May 2018, this month. And in the sound-off section, letters and comments from readers, one reader commented, Buchanan is unlikely to be spared from property tax increases after Indian Point closes. People are already moving out in advance of the shutdown, so be aware if you're looking there. I think a few things tell me that this is, that, you know, people are not, you know, just jumping ship here. One, you know, from the building inspector and from what I could see, the building inspector has said anything going on the market is swallowed up instantly. I've been here 27 years. It's a typical spring thing for me to drive the length of Tate Avenue and see 3, 4, 5, and in some bad years, 8, 9, 10 real estate signs out. Common to see 5 to 10. This spring, I'm driving the length of Tate, and I see one sign of a house for sale. And other people are saying and realizing that this is an opportunity that, Buchanan's going to be forced to reinvent itself, which we should be looking at, ways to create a new sense of community and to change and evolve with the times. I was at a restaurant last weekend while me and my wife were waiting for the table. We were sitting at the bar and started talking to another couple. I'm sorry, this won't take too much longer. And the guy says, "Oh, you're from Buchanan? I hear Buchanan's going to become a great place to live because with the plant closing, they're going to just be doing all sorts of new things, and it's going to be totally reinvented. And within and before long, it's going to be it's going to be one of the top places around to live." So you could listen to people and get different opinions, but the fact is, there's not a lot of houses on the market, and maybe some people are leaving, but there's a lot of people ready to swallow up those houses. Okay, I'll shut up now. It's a long night, right? Thank you.
Trustee Pasquale.
Yes, ma'am, thank you. First of all, I missed the last meeting, and I want to formally congratulate the mayor on her reelection, and Rich and Nick, and I know you ran unopposed, but it's a pleasure and honor to work with
But
all
we still
of you.
needed that one vote.
Oh, yeah, well, but, I just wanted to formally, acknowledge that, but okay. You got mine. Well, anyway, also, I'd like to continue to keep the community updated on some of our police responses, and we have, Chief Tubbs here, and I personally thank him. Thank you for taking care of this, Chief. I appreciate it. On Monday, April the 9th at 1:15 a.m., Officer Palmetto responds to an Albany Post Road residence where a resident was injured in a fall. He renders aid until the paramedic and the ambulance arrive. On Tuesday, April 10th, 11:57 a.m., a Burke Court resident contacts police and states that youths are frequently loitering in the evenings at a cul-de-sac on Burke Court. Officers are advised and increase patrols to dissuade the youths from loitering. Wednesday, April 11th at 8:10 a.m., while checking Lentz Cove Park, Officer Buddy locates individuals in the park after the posted hours. Summonses were issued for violations of the village ordinance. Friday, April the 13th at 7:15 a.m., Officer Farrell receives a call of suspicious subjects trying to hide behind bushes and cars in the area of Tate Avenue and Valerie Court. Officer Farrell locates the subjects and determines that they are high school students playing a game involving shooting other students with water guns. Okay. The youths were sent on their way. Sunday, April 15th at 5 p.m., Officer Farrell responds to a Craft Lane residence for a sick skunk. The animal was located and determined to be a hazard to the residents. It was euthanized with the department's dart gun. Yeah, and that thing could have had rabies and everything. That was good. Saturday, April 21st, 5:45 p.m., Officer Buddy receives a call of a suspicious vehicle on Lindsay Avenue. Officer Buddy locates the vehicle, and the people in the vehicle had no legitimate reason for loitering in the area. They agreed to leave. Tuesday, April 24th, 10:30 a.m., while doing a routine walk through Buchanan Verplank School, Officer Farrell is informed by employees of the school that there had been a suspicious person in the playground. Officer Farrell was able to locate the subject and determine that he was a local resident walking his dogs. He was instructed not to return to school property. Thursday, April 26th at 12:15 p.m., Officer Farrell receives calls from employees at Buchanan Verplank School. They reported that they hear explosions in the area, and they are bringing the children inside from the playground and beginning lockdown procedures. Officer Farrell quickly determines that the explosions are fireworks from a funeral in Verplank. He informs the school of his findings. That's really important. And last one, Sunday, April 29th at 3:15 p.m., Sergeant Guida responds to a complaint of a domestic dispute. Upon arrival, he determines that the aggressor is not at the residence and the victim is safe. Follow-up investigations are continuing. And I'd like to end by wishing all the women out there a very happy Mother's Day. And to those of you who are still lucky enough to have your moms, around, give them that extra hug and tell them how much you love them. So, Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers in Buchanan.
All right. Thank you, Trustee Pasquale. Trustee Jackson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Definitely been a very interesting evening. I had a conversation with the superintendent of the Hennett schools, and we are planning for our historical open house in the fall, so we're going to reinitiate that. And then also as the member of the Education Committee, working with the Hen HUD, because, you know, when we talk about the budget and monies going forward, the 800-pound gorilla in the room is actually what's going to happen with that school budget. And as we try and continue to work with the superintendent in finding ways to mitigate exactly that impact, is something that hopefully we'll be getting more involved in and get some suggestions moving forward. I believe the $24 million is a one-shot deal.
It's a beginning.
It's
that
a
has
beginning.
to be funded
Yeah.
hopefully every year.
Right. So, but just working with the superintendent to make sure that you know, they stay afloat and that it's economically feasible for us taxpayers here in Buchanan, because the school tax is the majority of the taxes we pay. Let's see. I want to bring back some discussion, as we've talked about in the past, about illegal apartments. I've talked to a couple of residents, and that seems to be something that we don't really necessarily have a handle on right now, but I think some further investigation by the building inspector will warrant just kind of a check to see where we are on that with landlords that are renting places out and them being you know, homemade apartments or multiple dwelling apartments within a single family house or whatever. So I think we need to revisit that going forward. And as always, our catch basins flow down to the lake. So be aware of trash on the streets. Our highway department does a great job, but you know, for those of us who are walking our dogs or walking our cats, you know, be mindful of their waste and picking up poop and all of those type of things. And as Cheech said, happy Mother's Day to all of those in the village, and have a great Buchanan Day.
There you go.
Where have I heard that before?
I don't know. I just want to comment on the illegal apartments. I know the building inspector has caught up with a few of them, and, you know, so if people feel that there's illegal apartments, please contact the building inspector so he can investigate that. Thank you. Trustee Funchin, last but not least.
Happy Mother's Day to everybody. Cheech and I met with the police officers on April 20th, and I thought it was a beneficial meeting at the time. I hope it still is considered a beneficial meeting. I thought we all walked away happy. I went to the same thing as everybody else did here, the state and our consultants, the DL English. And one thing I'd just like to point out is that I think the help that we're getting is nonpartisan between Nita Lowey, Senator Murphy, and Sandy Galoff. They've all done things. They're not just sitting on their hands, and they've all done things to help out our community. So I know politicians always get bad names, but they are actually up there doing and trying to get us a good bit of money. Now, maybe they won't all come, but that's that. But we're not alone in this. Lastly, I attended the vets meeting over in the Veterans Hospital here in Montrose, and it's always a nice meeting to go to. One thing I did not know that's the veterans. I don't know whether you call it a retirement home or
state retirement home.
It's run and by very competent people. It's a beautiful place, and I did not know that the wives of veterans, because mainly most of the veterans we're talking about that are there are male. I'm not ignoring female. but most of them are male. So the wives of those people are also eligible to be in that home, although they do have a waiting list. And finally, I think our thoughts and prayers should be with the families on Memorial Day of those who, as Memorial Day is, a time of remembrance of those who didn't come home from war. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Rich. Thank you very much. Okay, comments from the floor. Is everybody still awake? I see toothpicks in people's eyes out there, but you're still with us. Okay, no comments from the floor? Okay, I'm going to make a motion to close this meeting, but I'm also, okay, let's make that motion first, and then I'm going to make a motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to go into executive session to discuss personnel issues. No monies will be spent. And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Second, and aye.
Second.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, thanks, everyone, for coming, and have a great Buchanan Day.